bit more up to date.
Preparing to live stream, lads.
You big into your stoner rock, or is it like more?
A little bit, yeah. There's a few bands like that.
Una Rock.
I like Caius, who are like the sort of precursor to
fucking love Caius.
Direct into YouTube.
Queens of the Stone Age.
Yes. Caius are a great band. Great band.
We are live. Hello, YouTube.
Do you like Dinosaur Jr.?
I don't think off the top of my head, I can't remember if I've heard much of their stuff, but my brain is basically mush at the moment because, as you've just seen, a little bit of the baby is tormenting us at the moment. Sleep is at a premium.
Been there, got the t-shirt twice.
I thought she was settling into it, but
we are live on YouTube.
Outstanding. Welcome, YouTube.
Please swear.
Motherfuckers.
Right, I'm going to close it in here so I don't...
Fairly certain you can't call our viewers motherfuckers.
No, I'm calling YouTube motherfuckers.
Just let us know when you want to sync the audio for the actual podcast.
I'm just setting everything up. I've had a fucking hell of a day. Shit ain't gone right. The kids have just been little pains in the behind when we come to the bottom end. And honestly, it's just doing my head in. I'll be straight up with you. You know what I mean? Oh god. Somebody post a message and let Martin Underwood know that we're actually going live right now, will you? You're all in the same chat.
I'm just doing it now.
Cheers, mate. Okay, so Audacity, quick check. Check 1, 2, mic check, bloody blah. Check 1, 2, mic
check.
Excellent. Right, we're all good. Good. Oh man, that's just emptied the job lot. What the? I was going to try recording today straight into Pro Tools, Tricky.
Yeah.
Can't work out how to do it.
Can't work out how to record even.
No, I can't even work out how to record in the damn program.
Like I said, it's a fucking next level of complicated. This Pro Tools.
I'll tell you something though. I found a set of tutorials on YouTube that are absolutely fantastic. Really, really good. I've got the editing almost down pat in it now.
Well, that's good. I mean, if you can use that, then go for it, definitely.
Absolutely. It's got a lot more power than Audacity. And, plugins actually work in it. So, yeah. Okay, guys, are we all ready to rock and roll, Owen?
Oh, I think I am.
Are we all ready? I'm going to count us down.
Yeah, who's starting it, by the way? Because Owen did.
I'll do the start.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's your episode, Chris.
But no, mine was last week, mate.
So's us then. Or Owen. I don't know.
Or Tricky.
Who cares? It's all of ours. Let's embrace it.
Andy, 2 PSI max boost. You don't even have 2 PSI. What you on about? Right then. 3, 2, 1, go. I mean, Tricky will sync that up anyway. We don't need to worry. So, good evening, gentlemen and ladies. Welcome to episode 21 of the Hop Edition. Tonight we will be talking about pressurized fermentation, pressure fermentation, whatever you want to call it. Basically, something one of our members has absolutely no idea about, and that would be the Honda top-wearing bearded Scotsman in the corner, Mr. Andrew Lynch, who has no idea and he's only here to basically learn something. The Blue Underpants brewer in the bottom corner, who is now wearing a blue hoodie to go with his underpants, and Tricky, who is in the worst designed, acoustically terrible room that the world has ever known. Say hello, guys.
Hello.
Echo.
Yeah, so Tricky's room, shocking. His old shed was better than this. I don't know why he bothered moving, to be fair.
There's work in the pipeline to fix those issues, though.
I mean, that is really bad, Tricky. I can hear it now.
He's trapped in a ready to
room
of despair.
Yeah, it's actually.
Well, no, it's not on the wall yet, and it's not got any foam in it, so it's not going to do fuck all at the minute. But we'll eventually get it doing something. I have moved the curtains on this side to the other side of the door as well, so at least that side is a bit less. Ping. But
the giant
that side
reverberation
not so
panel
good.
on your left is well
that's
up the
not
creek,
so
right?
great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So today we're talking about pressurized fermentation, and I think this one's going to be a good one. You might actually learn some science here, people. So strap in. We're going into the depths of the Krebs cycle. For those of you who don't know what that is, did you not pay any attention in school? What's wrong with you? What are you doing? Anyway, so what are we drinking? Tricky, you can go first so we can hear more of that wonderful echo.
Okay, well, it's going to be a very quick one because this is something I was drinking on one of the previous episodes. I haven't obviously brewed anything new yet since then, so it's just the orange and coriander saison that I made on the previous live brew day. It's travelled reasonably well though, and it's still tasting pretty good. So it's a nice, refreshing kind of sessionable beer. That's all I've got to say about that, really. On to the next one. Yeah, you can keep waiting.
It looks like it's cleared up nicely. Looks a little bit clearer than the last time I saw it.
Yeah, it's pretty good clarity on that.
Oh yeah,
crispy boy.
It is quite crisp. Yeah, it's got a nice, clean, crisp finish to it.
Cool, Andy. What you got?
I've got my Munich Helles lager with Saz and Herzbrucker, and it is awesome. It's so crispy, so just got that Munich thing going, slight breadiness, just. And the Saz gives it the slight spiciness, and then the Herzbrucker gives it that kind of little fruitiness, like kind of wee berry thing. So it's just that it's dynamite.
Do you know when you guys talk about a beer being crispy? Do you know the image that pops into my head? You know, we're getting really bad pellicle on the top of your beer. That's what pops into my head. That's what I consider to be a crispy beer. I don't really want to be drinking one of them, I've got to admit. So you're not exactly selling me these beers.
Biting through it.
Yeah. Owen, what you got, mate?
Oh, I've got part of my vacant gesture clone.
Yes.
So I brewed this on the last live brew day. I imagine a lot of our listeners are familiar with this beer, but it is the commercial example is from a brewery in a place called Retford, which is in the north of England, by a guy called Chris, who runs Harrison's Brewery, and it is a session blonde ale, quite a hoppy session blonde ale, and yeah, I'm really pleased with it. It's come out super nice. I posted my grain to glass video on what was that?
Sorry.
That was somebody putting on the YouTube stream. Yeah.
Okay.
My PC decided to poop itself. Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, Max.
I posted my my grain to glass video on this just yesterday.
I'm excited to go and watch it.
On my channel. So go check it out there.
You should have told us last night that you.
I'm telling you now, Andy.
Yeah.
I'm telling you now. There is a long and detailed tasting section on there if anyone's really interested.
Section.
Cheers. Sexy
Nice.
section.
Sexy section with crispy beers. Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know if I've actually had this on one of the episodes before. I may well have done. I have a pint of my brown ale.
Oh,
the recipe of which my son designed, weirdly enough. My little boy started getting into sort of wanting to be, part of my brewing days and all that sort of stuff, and it's wonderful as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But the recipe he basically pulled out of, I can't remember which book it was. I think it was the homebrew beer book. And he went, I want to brew this one, Daddy. And I went, I've got everything in for that. Let's rock on. So we came down the shed, got some water, filled it up, and he made the beer. I made sure he didn't kill himself.
Yeah.
He's only 6. I had to lift the grain bag out for him. But not after he'd had a few goes. I'm not giving him everything. It's, yeah,
Did you get him to do it, drop in the hops and all that as well?
Yeah, did everything. Yeah.
Oh, class.
Even he weighed out the grain, he weighed out the hops, he weighed out the water additions, he weighed out everything. Got him right in there. He's good.
That is good.
It's a wonderful beer, I have to say. I love a good brown ale, but I've never ever managed to make a good one at home.
Yeah.
Back when I was going through my phase of always having to design my own beers, I chose to push that side of me back a little bit and just allow myself to use some recipes from books and stuff. You can always tweak them afterwards, but as long as you've got a decent base, you're all right. But yeah, this one, I mean, bang on straight from the outset. I'm loving it. I couldn't tell you what's in it. I can't remember. It was brewed a while ago. But for those of you who are on YouTube, does that look nice and clear?
Yeah,
oh, it's all right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's lovely.
Good.
It's really nice beer.
good clarity on that, I think.
Yeah, I always get pretty decent clarity on my beers, even on the wheat beers if you leave them long enough.
Do you tend to use that clarity stuff, don't you?
Clarity Firm, yeah.
Yeah, that's the same stuff that you add to remove the gluten?
Yes. So this beer technically is gluten reduced. You can't call it gluten free, but it is gluten reduced. It was the Southern brown ale that he wanted to make.
Okay.
Yeah, not the Northern brown ale.
So it's
which
right next
annoyed
to it.
me.
Okay. Fuggles.
I didn't use Fuggles.
Oh, right. Okay.
In fact, you give me a minute and I'll tell you what's in it.
Pale.
You're annoying me now.
Dark crystal malt, chocolate malt, torrefied wheat, black malt.
Give me a sec. Yeah,
3.8%.
Yeah, I had a little bit of torrefied wheat. I don't know if I had the full amount that was required for the recipe, but yeah, it was all right.
Was it about 3.8?
No, it's 4.7 this one. So it might have been the Northern brown ale. 4.2 kilos of Maris, 188 grams of extra dark, 100 grams of 150 crystal, 100 grams of chocolate, 10 grams of Warrior, and 50 grams of Centennial.
I think you went. So it is a Southern recipe, but you probably bumped it up a wee bit or something.
Yeah, it's because I've got such awesome efficiency on my system, you see. But yeah, no, it's a really nice beer. I like it a lot. It's really good.
Question:
to be fair,
did you pressure ferment it?
I did, yes. I did, which slips nicely into what we're talking around. So yeah. Before we start talking about the pressure fermentation, though, we had a little chat, the Hop Edition crew, the other day, and we decided that what we're going to do is to involve you, our wonderful listeners. We want to do a live brew day. We've all got, Zoom. And even if you haven't got Zoom, it doesn't matter because you can still join one if it's in progress. And what we want to do is we want to put a poll up on the Facebook page, and we want to have you guys choose from a list of probably 4 or 5 beer styles, and then we want you to basically join us on a specific day at a specific time if possible. If not, we'll probably be on all day, and we want you to brew your interpretation of that beer. What's Tricky doing? Why is he on the phone? Anyway, don't matter. So yeah, basically we want you to go there, engage with the poll, and actually choose the beer that we're all going to make, because we're all going to make the same beer. It's just you get to interpret the beer style how you want to interpret it.
Yeah.
And hopefully it will end up being quite a lot of fun, and a few people will send beer. I mean, I'll send beer mails to absolutely anybody who wants one, as long as you're in the UK.
Yeah.
And then basically we can all try the beers, and me, Andy, Owen, and Tricky will spend one episode of the Hop Edition, probably 2 to be fair, getting absolutely battered, trying your interpretations of that beer style. So it'll be Christmas edition number 2. But yeah, we're going to compare and contrast everybody's interpretation of the beer, and we'll take it from there.
Otherwise known as Chris's cunning plan to get shitloads of beer mail from people.
Free beer.
No, I think just to add to that, like the 4 of us are gonna obviously do the same thing.
Yeah.
We're going to come up with a recipe to try and interpret a particular style, and that will be the context of a future podcast, and trying to kind of dissemble, if you will. What's the right word? Dissect.
That's a good word.
How we actually approached recipe creation, and why we like added certain things into the recipe, and what we thought we were going to get out of it, and did it work, didn't it work, and maybe even we might end up kind of coming out with a single recipe by taking everything that we talk about and what was good about each of our beers and creating maybe a hop edition recipe.
Sounds like a plan to me.
One for the books.
One for the books.
Fun.
Yeah.
Maybe we should write a book.
Maybe we should.
Maybe
we should. So anyway, who wants to start us off then with? I guess I better do this, but haven't I?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm talking an awful lot, and Tricky's sat there combing his beard.
I haven't got the beard comb out. Yeah, it was.
I wish I had a beard to comb.
I wish I could grow a beard.
Somebody did actually buy me a beard brush for Christmas this year.
Oh, amazing.
Is it a good beard brush?
It was decent quality, yeah, to be fair.
Do you feel like you're a red setter
and
when
some oil
it?
as well?
Some oils as well,
it,
yeah. Nice.
Did it have a fine mahogany polished handle?
I don't think it was mahogany. I wouldn't say that it's got quite that.
Was it high-end Austrian horsehair?
Which one of your listeners posted that to you?
Not a listener. Not a listener, no.
Was it Cindy Bin?
Definitely not.
Cindy Bin.
I've never been trolled by Cindy Bin.
Who was the one I get trolled? There was a new one.
I've been trolled by the guy that you got trolled by.
Yeah, as have I.
Yeah.
What's his name? Like
something Wilson? James? Maybe? No,
not James Wilson.
I stuck the flame onto that idiot.
Oh, it was good though.
He's a weird troller though, isn't he? He's like a sort of uber detailed.
Michael James.
Michael James.
Incorrect.
I got
incorrect, but uber detailed.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get this one started with 15 minutes. Get it started in here. Right. So how does pressure fermentation work? Well, we have quite a little bit of spiel. Please strap in. There is going to be some science here. You know me.
Here come the science.
Here he comes. Before you start though, Chris, do we want to just very briefly cover off what is pressure fermentation?
I'm going to do that. That's literally in paragraph A.
Perfect.
Okay.
I thought you might be diving in.
Okay, so inside your cells, you have these subcellular organisms.
Perfect.
Okay, we'll move on. Traditionally, beers were fermented in open-top vessels. This changed to closed vessels to prevent infection from airborne microorganisms. Anybody who uses the word germs here is going to get stabbed, okay? Airborne microorganisms. Airlocks were added to prevent the ingress of oxygen. Fermenting under pressure allows brewers all of the benefits I've just listed, with the additional benefit of carbonating beer at the same time. It allows closed transfer to remove oxygen contact during packaging, and also has some very cool actions on the biochemistry, which I'm going to go into because I geeked out massively on this, which is occurring during the brewing process. Essentially, you are fermenting in a vessel which is closed and which is pressurizing either by the addition of CO2 or by the CO2 which is being produced. Most will utilize a spunding valve, which allows you to set a specific pressure for the fermentation, and then any additional pressure bleeds off through the spunding valve. It's actually really quite a simple process, but the way in which it works is fantastically interesting to me. There was a study which was done in 2001 by S. Landwad and a bunch of other people. So, because I'm a chemist, I've wrote in my notes, S. Landwad et al. and it was titled Top Pressure and Temperature Control, the Fusel Alcohol Ester Ratio Through Yeast Growth in Beer Fermentation. It was published in the Institute of Brewing, and it concluded that increased temperature increased the rate of fermentation, increased dissolved CO2, decreased the production rates of yeast and esters. And by decrease the production rates of yeast, I mean the reproduction rate of yeasts. Essentially, it gave less yeast proliferation and less esters in the beer. This may be to do with something called it's an enzyme cofactor, and it's called acetyl coenzyme A. Now, inside your cells, you have these tiny little things, which may be a symbiotic prokaryote, may not be, called a mitochondrion. And that is literally the battery of your cell. That's where all the energy that your cell works on is produced. Okay. It's produced by something called the Krebs cycle. You can go and read up on this. There will be an exam. And this allows production of a chemical called ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. This is what the energy supply to your body is. It's not sugar, it's not glucose, it's ATP, and in some cases ADP, which is adenosine diphosphate. So adenosine, which is an amino acid with 3 phosphate groups, or adenosine with 2 phosphate groups. Now, personally, I can see a couple of issues and a couple of benefits here. So unless there is little to no pressure at the beginning of fermentation, the amount of yeast that you will have will be reduced. You will not get the proliferation that you normally get. So your half teaspoon of Voss is not going to turn into 5 liters. Okay. It's just not going to happen. Owen's favorite person in the world, Scott Yanish, suggests that no pressure for the first 24 hours and then increased pressure towards the end should give the best of both worlds. It should give you good yeast growth during the proliferation stage, and then a suppression of esters towards the end, along with increased yeast activity. I'm sorry, did I see somebody's hand go up there? No? No? Good. If the pressure is increased too early, it could lead to a suppression of yeast budding, and it could hinder the rate of fermentation towards the end. You're not going to have that constant production of healthy yeast cells through budding to allow you to get through your fermentation process. And it will also stress the yeast so that off flavors may be produced. Research does not disprove this, nor does it back it up. But logically, as a biochemist, this is a potential issue which may rear its head. Now, studies have shown that if the pressure is increased immediately, there is a risk of slower diketone metabolism. For those of you who weren't listening when me and Tricky did the off flavors episode, diketones are what gives you diacetyl. Okay? The risk of the diketone metabolism reduction gives a risk of diacetyl in the finished beer, as basically there isn't enough yeast in solution floating around within that wort/beer, whatever it is at that point, semi-wort, I don't know, to contact the diketones and metabolize them. So it may well be that if you pressurize too early, you may end up with some diacetyl, you may not, but that is fundamentally what is happening within the actual pressurized fermenter. And personally, I think it's absolutely fantastic. And I read up for like 4 hours on it because it was amazing. So
thanks, Chris.
the exam, because Tricky's looking confused.
Can we? Is it multiple
Always
choice?
confused.
I hope it's multiple choice.
You're just going to pick D, aren't you?
Yeah.
That's what you did at school. You chose
Get
D.
notes up.
Yeah. 4-1.
No, seriously, it's really quite interesting. If you're into biology or biochemistry in any way, you may actually find that having a read through some of the research on pressurized fermentation, it's bloody brilliant. And the way in which it works is just fantastic. But there is a real risk if you do it wrong. If you pitch your yeast and then immediately go to 20 psi on your fermenter, there is a real risk that you may end up with off flavors.
So wouldn't one of the takeaways from that be that basically if you just allow the pressure to build up naturally, you're kind of covering that off anyway? So I would imagine that you'd only really have that issue if you were putting the top pressure on artificially straight from the beginning.
That was my interpretation of it, yeah.
Yeah, because generally speaking, if you're just pitching the yeast and letting it do its own thing under, zero pressure to start with, I mean, I wouldn't see full pressure within the first 24 hours anyway, unless it's a really crazy yeast like a quike or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is, sometimes do you not set your pressure valve by putting artificial CO2 on top to dial your pressure?
I do that when I'm pressure testing my my Firmzilla. So when I do the pressure test, which I do before every brew, I'll set it to like whatever PSI it's supposed to be at that point.
Yep.
But most of the time, I'll do it because I've got a spare keg, which is empty. So I tend to keep that keg at 10 PSI. That way I can vent down or I can pressure up. And if I keep it at 10 PSI, then I can set my thing at 10 PSI, know where it's going to be, turn it down, allow everything to build up. And when I hear gas coming out, then I'll crank the pressure up, which is normally, if I'm using a normal yeast, it's normally after about 36 hours that I do that.
Yeah. I think I've probably made the mistake of artificially adding top pressure as soon as I've pitched the yeast. But then I've only ever really gone to kind of 8-10 psi, which may be not enough pressure to cause too much of an issue.
There were values in the piece of research that I read, and it was saying that anything, I can't remember the exact numbers, it was either 20 or 30 psi.
Yeah.
If you put that on from the outset, then you can have some issues.
Yeah, but so the key takeaway is it just limits the budding and the growth phase of yeast.
Yeah.
Which I suppose when we move on to the next bit is about, breweries and their pressure. That'll probably limit their tank design then, because they don't want to have 30 psi at the bottom of their fermenting tanks.
If they've got 30 psi at the bottom of their fermenting tank, then they've basically got a 20-meter tall fermenter.
Well, you look at Tennant's Brewery then, because they've got big fermenting tanks sitting outside just like that.
But is it 20 meters tall? Because that's 60 feet. Well, 66 feet.
That's a
big old fermenter.
Brewdog's got big ones that sit right out the top of the roof of the brewery.
Wow.
Yeah, I bet they're still not 20 meters though.
I think the takeaway from this is artificial pressure. Normal pressure probably isn't an issue because you're still going to get that ability for the CO2 to vent off.
And the yeast can go up to the top.
And the yeast there.
It can live up the top, but it's
still
got that pressure.
But when you're talking about hydrostatic pressure within and that's what we were talking about in terms of the height of a commercial fermentation vessel, that's a dynamic pressure as well, isn't it? It's going to be it will be pressurized at the most at the bottom and least at the top, and yeast obviously does have the ability to move around within solutions, so it's perhaps not such a significant issue there. Obviously at homebrew level, you're not going to have hydrostatic pressure. That's not going to be an issue, right?
No, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be an issue at all.
Sorry.
I was
just going to say that was the whole thing was, do breweries use pressure fermenting?
Well, there are some that do. I found some evidence that there are some that do purely for lagers and stuff like that. And I think that's purely a speed thing. So you can use whatever lager yeast they want, pressure ferment, increase the temperature, and have it done in 5 days instead of 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as actual pressurized fermentation for ale, I'm not entirely sure that there are, to be fair. I couldn't find any anyway.
Yeah. And then I think the discussion we had was it kind of led on to the hydrostatic pressure from the tanks being so big that they actually do ferment under pressure to a certain extent. It's just because of how big the tanks are. Because Chris, I think you were talking about 6 psi was probably what you would expect.
Well, if you've got a 2,500 litre fermenter, depending on the height of it, and the thing is, the fermenters, the majority of the ones that the craft breweries are using, they tend to be wider than they are tall. And if that's the situation, then you're effectively reducing that hydrostatic pressure because the depth of the liquid isn't as well. There's a lot of liquid in there, but it's not very deep. It's like it's like if you got a really, really big puddle. I mean, Harry Brew's saying he doesn't know of anyone who does it as standard.
Yeah.
But if you've got a really, really big, long, massive puddle, it may have 150, 200 litres in it. And if you add that in something that was the size of a fire extinguisher, you're going to have a lot of pressure at the bottom because you've got a lot. Essentially, it comes down to atoms pushing down on atoms affected by gravity. So if you've got a big wide thing, then you don't have any issues with it. But if you've got like something which is really, really tall, then you're going to have problems because you're going to have that hydrostatic pressure. As far as I could work out, based on homebrew, it's never going to be a problem. Because at the most, you're going to have 18 inches of liquid.
Yeah.
If you've got a foot, you're talking what? A tenth of a PSI? Maybe 1 PSI. That's all you're going to be looking at.
I don't know. I guess you might have home brewers that are brewing, I don't know, 20 gallons or whatever.
Yeah, in which case they're going to have slightly more, but
it's not going to be. It's not going to be enough, is it? No.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, I guess there's like, from as far as we know, commercial breweries don't tend to use pressure fermentation for ale production. They might use it in some respects for lager production. I guess there are a lot of breweries that do tend to top cap.
Yeah,
which is a term that they may do is just seal off the fermentation vessel nearing the last few points of fermentation with a spunding valve, because it naturally carbonates the beer and actually saves on them having to add artificial CO2.
Yeah.
So often it's a cost saving activity.
I've seen that at
but
Westone.
also I guess if you're brewing beer traditionally in line with camera, assume that you would you may
the word we're not allowed to say.
I know, I'm sorry. You might end up using sort of capping to help carbonate the beer slightly. In some cases it might be enough then just be able to package it. You may not even do a secondary fermentation. I don't know, but
I've certainly seen breweries who would use that kind of post-fermentation pressure tank just to maybe carb stuff up, and especially if they're doing canning, I think, and things like that, where it's going to be an advantage in terms of getting it into packaging, pre-carbonated or whatever.
Yeah, I seen just on the way, just going back to the capping thing, when I did the brewery tour at West in Glasgow, the German lager brewery, a lot of their stuff, when I watched, because you see all the fermenting charts up on the wall, and obviously me being a total geek, I was reading it all, and it was showing you how they would normally, 12 degrees or 11 degrees, whatever, and it come down to kind of final gravity. And what they would do at that point is they would cap it and then raise the temperature to the 15, 16, whatever it is, to then do your diacetyl rest and that sort of thing. But then as a process, it would then put in that carbonation into the beer as well. And the unit, because they were all unit tanks that they were getting fermented in. So yeah.
So it's interesting. It's interesting then that pressure fermentation seems to be more of a home brewing development in the last kind of couple of years maybe than it is a commercial thing.
But don't forget, homebrewers set the scene sometimes with new things, new techniques. Sometimes it's the homebrewers that do it.
Scale.
Yeah.
But what we're also saying is that to an extent, putting pressure onto a smaller vessel is kind of just recreating the conditions that the bigger brewers have in their vessels by
Yeah.
the fact that they've got that hydrostatic pressure there by default. So
Yeah.
it's a bit
Does
of
the
both. Really.
hydrostatic pressure affect it in the same way as the artificial top pressure? Because that's one thing that I've been wondering. Because essentially they've got an open top vessel, so they've got zero pressure at the top. Gases will naturally rise through a liquid, and if they're dissolved, then surely they'll come out of solution and still vent off anyway.
Yeah, it's got to have some sort of impacts in terms of what yeast you're using as well. So, you know, a true top cropping ale yeast that sat on the top, basically under, you know, normal atmospheric pressure versus a true bottom fermenting yeast that's however many meters underneath the beer and subject to the full, you know, hydrostatic pressure or whatever. I mean, maybe that's why one of the reasons why homebrewing lagers is, you know, can be particularly difficult if you're doing it with the traditional methods, because you don't have that automatic kind of pressure that you're getting when you're doing it on the bigger scale. Maybe.
Yeah. No, totally.
Yeah. So maybe it is a homebrew attempt at replicating similar environments to what you do see in a commercial environment, but just in a way that is possible at the scale that you're brewing at in home brewing. So, or perhaps it is just a home brewing innovation that we can do because of scale, and commercial breweries find harder because of equipment limitations or whatever.
It's possible. It's possible.
I think it just opens up lots of avenues for, you know, trying it out in different ways and experimenting with it as well, doesn't it? So, you know, maybe it's come from that originally, and then it's now allowed you to go, okay, well, what if I try, you know, doing it with a Quake yeast under 30 psi, and can I make a beer in like 36 hours or whatever, you know? So
yes,
36 minutes.
Yeah.
Instant beer.
I'll tell you right now, if you use Voss, you can ferment Voss at, what was the highest I went? 24 psi. And I just let the pressure rise naturally. I set the spunning valve to 24, threw it into a wort at 34 degrees, 32 degrees, 34 degrees, something like that. Literally connected the spunning valve up, went back up to the house, did my thing, came back down because I brewed in the morning. I was done and pitched by 11. Came back down to the shed at 8 o'clock at night, incidentally, to talk to Tricky about something to do with the podcast. And it was already at 18 psi and rising. And I had my eye spindle in at the point, and it had already dropped, I think it was 11 points or 12 points by that point. Anyway, it hit the pressure and it did its thing. And that beer was finished in 39 hours, start to finish, according to the eye spindle.
Chris,
Wow.
that's an interesting one you talk about the ice spindle. I know Dr. Hans did some videos on pressure fermenting and the tilts and the spindles and stuff like that, and that it affects the readings. Is that something that you've seen?
Yeah.
But I take it you can still see the curve. You just know that the readings might just be out a bit, but you can see when
you can
it's
correct for it as well. So
yeah,
there's a load of fancy equations you can use to correct for it.
Okay, good.
So it's to be fair, pressure fermentation for me, it absolutely, totally, and utterly interests me completely, because it's one of them things that, for me as a geek, as an absolute geek, this completely interests me.
Yeah.
Purely from the biochemistry standpoint of it.
Yeah.
Being able to manipulate the metabolism of that organism, being able to manipulate when it's going to do what, how it's going to do what. That's just a whole level of biohacking that completely interests me.
Yeah.
But there is another part that we're going to talk about a bit later on in the podcast. I don't want to, blow everything right now.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about some stuff later on that really will interest people. As far as breweries that do pressurized fermentation, Trillium Brewing in America,
okay, yeah,
they do it. They do it purely for the dry hop. And we'll talk about that later.
Yep.
As it is right now, I've got a sore throat. Does anybody else want to take over for a little while and talk about yeast choices? Because I need a drink.
So I think we touched on obviously the differences between pressure fermentation for ales versus lagers, and actually the purpose and outcome being a little bit different. But we got a little list down of our experiences of different yeast styles or different yeast choices under pressure, and we've split them into ale, lager, and quake. So yeah, Tricky, what have you used ale wise under pressure?
Not a huge amount, to be perfectly honest. So I think I've done the, US-05. That might actually be it in terms of ale use. Actually, I think I've done the Rye 97 one as well. So really basically just clean,
American,
sort of West Coast ale use is really all that I've used. I've kind of been fairly limited in terms of what I've explored from that, because you do tend to hear a lot of stuff about pressure fermentation kind of saying ale yeasts are generally not as happy under pressure as your lager yeast, although certainly from I think the experience of a lot of us after discussing it, maybe that's not quite as true as some might make it out to be, but perhaps it's only at a certain fairly high pressure range that it becomes an issue. Because I know that some of you guys have definitely used quite a few of the other ale strains that are on our list. I guess the key point really is in terms of when we're looking at like how it affects the ester profile. If you're using that ale yeast to give you a profile that's particular to that yeast, and then the pressure is reducing that and making it cleaner, it kind of becomes a bit counterproductive. So why bother choosing a fancy English ale strain if you then pressure ferment and basically eliminate all of the character from that yeast and turn it into something that ferments out like US-05 or whatever. So but yeah, again, that kind of comes down to how much pressure you're using and when you are applying that pressure during the ferment as well. So I know you've used a few of the other kind of strains that we've got on there, Owen, but did you find it affected it much in that sense?
Yeah, I think we're probably onto something there. With like US-05 does respond quite well under pressure. I've used US-05 under pressure. I've used Midwestern ale yeast under pressure, which is yeast-based Midwestern ale yeast, which I'm always banging on about. I apologize. What else have I used? I haven't used that many under pressure, but I have used pressure during the fermentation of a lot of other yeasts. But I have deliberately not used pressure on the point that you just made, Tricky, in terms of avoiding pressure, certainly for the first 3 or 4 days of fermentation. So London Ale 3 I've used quite a lot. You got the verdant yeast. You've got a lot of the English ale yeast strains that you want that ester profile. That is the point of using that yeast. It's going to add fruity esters, and you're just going to kill that if you put it under pressure. Within reason, I think if you put it under 4 or 5 psi, maybe even 6, you might find a happy balance between the two. But then you're almost a bit like, well, what advantage are you getting by putting it under pressure? Yeah, you might speed up fermentation a little bit. You might be able to ferment at 1 or 2 degrees hotter.
What about for your cold crash on? Does it help having the beer naturally carbonated and then having a bit of pressure in there, so when you're cold crashing, then you don't get that suck back? Or with the plastic, with the plastic ones, it doesn't crush in.
No deformation,
Well, I think there's probably like a very distinct point that we have to make around this subject, in terms of you have pressure fermentation and you have the advantages of pressurable. Is that a word?
Yeah, go for it.
We'll go with it. If not, you just invented it. Well done.
Yeah, a vessel that you can pressurize. There are certain advantages to having a uni tank, if we want to call it that, right?
Yeah.
So there are a lot of pros and advantages, one of which you just mentioned, Andy, which I think are actually slightly separate to the point, the overall broader point of pressure
Yeah,
fermentations.
Flavor in your beer.
Exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, I haven't used a massive amount properly under pressure right the way through. Probably other than what Tricky mentioned, which was really clean American ale yeast. So I think if you are using an intended clean, and the outcome you're looking for is a clean fermentation profile with very little ester or phenol contribution, then by all means use pressure as much as you want.
Have you guys had any issues with fermenting under pressure and then maybe like having a poor fermentation?
Not so far. It might
No.
change
Not
anyway.
yet.
No.
Okay.
Not yet. Not at all.
I mean, of the poor fermentations I've had, I'd probably put it down to other things other than pressure.
Yeah, pressure.
Yeah. Other than I did, I think, Chris, you added this point around German hef yeasts.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I think I did find that when I started adding pressure to when I did a Hefeweizen, that didn't like it at all.
No.
It's a massive no-no. I've used a lot of yeast under pressure. I've had pressurized fermenters now for going on almost 2.5 years. So I've done a lot of beers under pressure. I've used WHC Bond, which is SO4. I've used Ringwood under pressure. I've used WHC's Beer Bitter, which is their Kolsch yeast. I've used Nottingham. I've used Stefan. I've used Mangrove Jack's MJ20. And basically the Hefe yeast are just a big fat no, just don't do it to yourself. Okay. Yeah. For those of you who are regular listeners to the podcast, you will have heard me talking to Tricky and talking about the stinky sulfurous American wheat beer that I made, which was an error in pressurized fermentation, because I like to, weirdly enough, sniff the airlock. Everybody likes to sniff the airlock from time to time. And I literally opened the fermentation fridge and just about fell out the shed. Right, this just don't do it. I mean, just don't do it. It stinks. It was pure sulfur. It was nothing but sulfur, and it was horrific. I actually connected up the CO2 line and purged the headspace in the fermenter to try and get rid of it. It stank. It was disgusting.
I thought, Chris, I thought you were about to say you purged your nose with CO2.
I purged my nose as well. I went outside and had a damn good vape.
Oh wow! But I've seen that the kind of Hefe that some of the traditionals have like open tanks sort of thing, so that it's like it just totally minimizes any pressure. So even that kind of airlock thing or anything, and the tanks are like super wide, not tall, just to minimize the pressure, hydrostatic pressure as well, and just to maximize on that Hefe characteristic.
Yeah. Question from Charlie Ticehurst, who's sitting in the chat at the moment. The thing is, fella, there is no one size fits all when it comes to pressure fermentation with yeast, and that's what we're talking about now.
What was the question?
He says, can you pressure ferment with any yeast? And the answer is probably not. No.
No. Well, Hefe's no.
Basically, you will have serious issues when it comes to off flavors. You will have issues with ester profile. You could probably turn the verdant yeast into Brine 97 with enough pressure.
Yeah, probably.
You could. And we're going to talk about all this later on in the pros and cons and the way in which and stuff like that. But I think the reality is, if you're brewing a lager, the yeast that we have actually tried is 3470. We've tried Diamond Lager. I've personally tried L17 Harvest, L13 Global, and all four of those work fine. No issues whatsoever. Even the Lalman Munich lager yeast, no issues whatsoever. Absolutely fine. The Weinstefana lager yeast, which is 3470, but what's the number for 3470 in White Labs or Y yeast, Tricky?
2124.
It's exactly the same yeast. One's liquid, one's dried. Just it's
like,
fine.
Weinstefan.
2124.
I think.
But the one that I have tried, which is a lager yeast, which didn't work very well for me, weirdly enough, is my favorite lager yeast.
Oh, 820.
Is 820 WLP
Yes.
820, the Marzen yeast. I mean, it worked. The beer was drinkable, but I think the reality is, if I just use the spunding valve as an airlock, as opposed to trying to eke that pressure up to try and maybe get the fermentation sort of time down a bit, I think I would have ended up with a better beer the time that I used it.
Mm.
When I used, oh, sorry, hang on a sec. J-Fault, when I used the Diamond, what was the SG and how many packs did I use? It was a, what was it? It was a Pilsner. It was a German Pilsner. And I think I used 2 packs.
Yeah.
I think I used 2 packs.
I used that yeast on that Schwarz beer that we made during the live brew day number of months ago. And in fact, I actually stupidly only bought 1 pack of that yeast. So I co-pitched it with Cross My Leaf Hell yeast.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm not sure what actual strain that would be.
Probably a Hellas.
Probably
German.
Munich. Don't know. So, and that worked out pretty well. I fermented that under pressure, finished really quick. If I recall, I ended up brewing that beer a week before the live brew day, and I couldn't actually make the live brew day. Yeah. And I remember getting my version into the keg and drinking it long before everyone else was. Because not only because I brewed it a week before, but because I pressure fermented it, it was done so much faster.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't know. Are you missing anything? I wonder if you're missing anything. I would really be interested in a kind of, like an experiment where you brew something like that on, and then comparison to no pressure, and see if because the best thing would be is you can't tell the difference because you've just made the beer a heck of a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But then if there is something, you probably find there is no difference.
I think my hypothesis there would be the difference would be very marginal, maybe perceptible, because of course, everything we've just been talking about, particularly with ale yeasts, is it will push the ester production down. Do lager yeasts add much in the way of esters? Not really.
Some of them do.
Yeah, but they tend to be a lot lower than ale yeasts. So it tends to be like you will get the same reaction.
Yeah.
Of course you will, just from scientifically speaking, you would conclude you'd get the same outcome, but it's just it's not going to be as perceptible, I guess.
Are you going to say anything on this episode, Tricky?
No, I'm just listening to the sound of a screaming baby through the.
Mate, if you need to go off and sort it out, crack on.
Yeah,
I am going to have to bail out for a moment. So
go for it, mate. It's all good.
You guys hold the fort for me.
Go nuts. Okay. I'm going to need you to chat whilst I go and take a piss. So
I got
swings and roundabouts.
Go do it. Go do it.
All right. See you shortly.
Okay, mate.
And this is what having kids does to the podcasting schedule.
No.
Madness.
How dare he? He should.
It's 9 o'clock. They should be asleep.
Mine are probably sat downstairs in the front room annoying the crap out of my wife.
The best part is Tricky will listen back to this, so he can get to hear the bit that we missed, and us basically giving him shit for wandering off, even though we said it's fine, mate.
The one thing that I do want to talk about here is Harrison's Brewery, the owner, head brewer, chief cook, and bottle washer, Harry Brew, who's currently in the chat. He made a very, very, very good point.
Get the merch.
You get the merch.
There he is.
I've got the merch on.
Basically, what he said was, if you ferment with the spunding valve purely as an airlock, and you've got some method of measuring your final gravity, then basically you can set your spunding valve to package in pressure at 5 points off the final gravity and still get full carbonation in your beer prior to packaging, which, to be fair,
Awesome.
amazing. Sounds like an absolute banger to me. So if you've got a yeast which has a very heavy ester profile, let's face it, at 5 points off FG, that's going to be done. You're going to have that ester profile. So you can just close your spunding valve. You can set it to,
Cap it.
I don't know, 12 psi, 13 psi, 15 psi, however high you want it carbonated. Let those final 5 points do their thing.
Exactly.
Carbonate your beer up. Robert's your father's brother. Fanny's your aunt. Will's your cousin. Carbonated beer. Transfer it into a keg. Carb it for maybe a day at 12 psi on your kegerator or keezer or whatever you've got, and boom, you've got beer which is rocking and good to go.
Yeah, but then we're back to the perks of just having a uni tank, aren't we? Rather than like actual pressure fermentation, I guess, in many respects. But I suspect we'll get onto the subject of pros of having a pressurable. I'll use it again. Pressurable fermenter.
Andy, how's your fermenter when it comes to being pressurable? How's it do?
2 psi, mate. That's why I've got
that your max
2
boost?
PS max boost.
Is that your max boost?
Shots.
That's my max boost.
Mate.
Then the PRV and it's got a little sort of pop-it, and it basically opens that. So it's great for you can set it during fermentation to 2 psi, fine, and the spunding, because I do have a carbonation cap on the top, and it is through a spunding valve. And the reason I love the spunding valve is because when I'm cold crashing, I can literally the spunding valve doesn't allow it to return the Starsan into the tank, so it's one way, and then I can always just top it up with a couple of psi off my gas. So the spunding works for me on a cold crash sense that I'm not getting oxygen into my beer.
You do realise that me and Owen and Tricky, when we're cold crashing, or when we're fermenting, we don't even have Starsan in a bottle.
Okay, why you could put your spunding through Starsan?
I do see people do that.
What's the point?
I think all they do, the only reason they do that is they run like they have their spunding valve on a tube, and it runs off into the cup of, like, it doesn't even have to be Starsan. Yeah, it could just be
a visual. Right? It's a visual. So
it's just a visual thing. They just they want to see the fermentation, whether it's happening or not happening. Personally, I think you just get a hiss out of it, don't you?
Yeah, that's all I get out of mine.
Yeah, it means you can see the bubbles. So when you're tweaking it, you can actually see when you're setting your PSI. So for me,
you could hear that.
No, don't know. I find that actually
you can hear it
clear.
You can hear it.
Maybe my hearing's crap then.
Well, all that.
Well, I mean, the difference between 1 and 2 psi, it's not going to be very audible, is it? So,
yeah. To be fair, if your max boost is only 2 psi, mate, I'd buy a different turbo if I were you.
No, I do see I've got the SS Brewtech Chronicle, and it is a lovely, lovely piece of kit, and it has turned out some absolute cracking beers.
It's an amazing piece of equipment, but with 2 psi max boost, I'm not interested.
Yeah, that's fair enough if that's what you're into, but I can do oxygen free through it, so it's still allowing me a pressure. It ensures that I don't get any oxygen into it, and then when I need to carbonate, then I can carbonate with my my kegs.
Yeah,
and then
I do like being able to put carbonated beer straight into a keg. Even if it's not fully carbonated, it just means that, like, when it just shortens the amount of time I have to wait for the beer to carbonate. Personally, I used to give it the old shake. I used to do that because I used to be really impatient. Now I'm too lazy, and I'll just hook it up and I'll be like, I've got other beers to drink. I'm not like
I've done
that much in a rush. And I do find the carbonation tends to be better if you set and leave rather than
you're right there.
Yeah.
Whereas
The-
when
the
you do
one
the
thing-
shake, it's hit and miss. You go, it's
Yeah.
carbonated.
So
Basically.
with the when you are putting beer into the keg that has been in a firmzilla and it is, you know, sort of at least half carbonated, it takes that sort of set and leave. It takes it from like 7 days down to sort of 3.
The one thing that I will say about this is when you're doing pressurized fermentation, specifically in a firmzilla or something like that, or you know, in a uni tank or whatever, I think it's just you and me now, Owen. Even Andy's fucked off and left us.
He's just going to get more beer, I think.
Jesus Christ! No, toilet. He's off for a lash.
Is he?
I think one of the things that we need to sort of point out here is purely from a logistical standpoint. If you're going to cold crash in a fermenter, which is a pressure fermenter,
Yeah.
you need a gas connection to that pressure fermenter, realistically speaking. Because what I always do is, because I run a spindle, I will set it to the point where I'm about 3 points off of final gravity, and then I simply close my spunning all the way.
Okay.
And I allow it to rise as high as it wants to rise, and then at that point I'll set the firm fridge to 1 degree and I'll start the cold crash.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, gas pressure is affected by temperature. So as the temperature drops down, and there's solution going off as well, there's you know, dissolution going off. If I didn't have a gas line running out the back of my firm fridge, out of my kegerator, straight up through into the back of the fermentation fridge, which I can connect to the top, I've actually had it whereby there's been very little production of gas. I've ended up at like 15 psi at the end, and then essentially you get to the point where it cools, and I've ended up with a vacuum.
Yeah.
So you get sucking on the sides.
Yeah, I've done
What
that.
I do now is whatever pressure, because I've got the little inline regs, whatever pressure I'm going to set for my carbonation, I will connect a disco onto the top of the firmzilla at that pressure.
So, Chris, did you just say you've got a gas line into your fermentation chamber?
Yes.
That's a good idea. I've not done that. I've got a disco on a reasonably long piece of tubing that is right next to the firm fridge, so it's close enough just to be able to whip around and just top it up and whatever.
That's what I've got.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair enough, and that's what I started off doing, and then I realized that maybe it'd be better to have one permanently connected.
No,
So
that
now
makes sense.
When I transfer beer now,
you guys is okay because you've got a properly good sealed fermenter. I think because mine's is that kind of funny one with the 2 psi, that PRV. I would freak out that, you know, eventually it would just come over that, and then all of a sudden it would just keep leaking and leaking and leaking my gas tank.
Yeah, of
the
course.
PRV, and then I would come out with no gas.
Yeah, but for me it worked really, really well. Now I get a point now where essentially I can transfer the beer from the firmzilla directly into a keg through closed transfer, and when it's in there, I will immediately connect it up in the kegerator, pull a pint, and normally it's either bang on or it's only got a tiny little bit of carbonation to go.
Yeah.
So you set it to 30 psi for a couple of hours, come back down, you know, vent it, set it to 5 or 8 or whatever, and boom, you've got perfect beer coming straight out of the keg. And even if I didn't want to do that, I can just leave the gas line connected at 20 psi or whatever I set it to in the fermentation fridge, and I can literally drink from that. Party tap on the outlet, boom, straight into a glass.
Perks of a unitank, right? Because it can be used to serve. You've got a floating dip tube on there. Why not?
Exactly right. Yeah.
You know, but no, it's a good idea. I've seen quite a lot of other people on, like, you know, a good Facebook group is the Firmzilla Facebook group.
I've not been banned from that one.
It's quite an international collection. There's a lot of Australians on there, being, you know, Kegland have arguably kind of pushed the pressure fermentation kind of thing further than most other manufacturers. But that's a good group. There's always a lot of if you can ignore the complaints, the constant complaints from people that can't figure out how to use the Firmzilla, or those that end up blowing it up through user error.
Yeah.
Which, in fairness, is like reasonably easy to do. Where am I going with this? It's a good group. And, I've seen a few people doing the same thing, Chris, running off a disco and then pushing constant head pressure whilst you cold crash, and it literally for carbonating your beer up to where you want it to be.
Because the gas will go into solution easier if the beer's cold as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And that's that. I mean, it's really, really hard to carbonate beer at 20 odd degrees.
Try it at 35 when you're running Uber.
Yeah, it's
point,
not
actually.
easy.
So what pressure are you guys fermenting at?
I mean, generally, I only go to about 10 most of the time.
Chris,
It depends what yeast. For the standard ale yeast that I've listed, generally about between 5 and 10 psi. For lagers, specifically with Global seems to love pressure. It's like lapping it up. It's like a saucer of milk and it's a fucking cat. That stuff will go 15, 18 psi and not even bat an eyelid.
So that's interesting. So the temperature you guys are...
It gets better, Andy. Calm down, sit back, take a breath. Uber...
Get the popcorn out.
32 psi with Uber, no problems whatsoever. Voss 30 psi, no issues. Hornidal 25 psi, and Ebergarden. Ebergarden, I only managed to take that up to 15, but I did have a leak on the Firmzilla at that point.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, sort of. Quike seems to like Quike. It's that seems to like pressure quite a bit.
So what I was going to get to was about
the look on your face as you processed
volumes.
Is it actually Quike? Is it?
Quike.
Quike.
It's Quike.
It's definitely Quike.
It was Kvike. It was Kvike, and then all of a sudden I changed it to Quike.
No, it's always been
that's
Quike.
That's what our brain was processing. It was like the V is a W, the D. I've had a few beers. Okay, I'm good.
It was always Quake, but then we used to call it Kvike. So.
Anyway, Andy, I need to interrupt because I'm drinking your.
Holy shit!
I'm drinking. I thought I'd bust out your Elvis Juice Grapefruit IPA tonight.
I thought you'd had all my stuff.
Yeah, well, it's 6.5%, so it's it's a nice session.
It's almost a dipper.
Nice session beer.
It's a nice session beer. I'm used to drinking 8%ers. Very nice. I think I'm just sensing only observation is
not enough grapefruit.
No, I think the grapefruit's good. I think there's just quite a strong kind of like caramel. It's just there's a little bit too much crystal malt in there, I think.
Yeah. Yep, I think that's just the recipe on. I think I even cut down. I think the amount of caramel compared to
it's too much sweetness.
It's caramel. I don't know if it's just because you're not used to caramel. To be fair, Owen, and you're very much you've been bred in all those soft,
super soft,
guys,
pale malt.
We're getting the piss ripped out of us on the chat on YouTube here.
I
don't know who J-Fork is, right? But first of all, your name's fucking funny. Secondly, are you actually Scandinavian? Send me a message and let me know if you're Scandinavian. Because I got the pronunciation for Quike from Johnny Birkland himself, Dr. Hans, whilst we were sat battered. Well, I was battered. He was not. At the London Craft Beer Festival, not last year, the year before, because it wasn't on last year, whilst we were discussing something that we both suffer from. And it is quike, and it is literally the Norwegian word for yeast. So when you say quike yeast, you're saying yeast. Stop doing it. Stop doing it. Yes. Oh, he's Danish. Oh, here we go. De more knapper dåligt. Let's see if he gets that one. See what he says back to that one. I used to live with a bunch of Danish guys in London. What's the other one? Biskorber?
Just realised I was still muted there. What is
Well,
it
right,
I miss
Chicky?
apart from quake pronunciation?
Yeah, no, we mostly
about-
we mostly
was it.
were hashing out how to pronounce Quake.
Oh, okay. Good filler.
Hey, folks,
Good filler
telling me I'm
content.
wrong.
What else did you miss?
I'm sure there's a clip on what might be Marius Garshols, who's like the Quake guy, and I'm sure there's a clip of somebody saying it in Norwegian, and it's like that. It's Quake.
Yeah, which means yeast, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Anyway,
It might be Swedish then, J4, because Johnny Birkeland is Swedish, isn't he? So it might be Swedish. I don't know.
Yeah.
Quake means
Make
giving
me-
life, apparently.
Does it really? Well, Johnny Birkeland lied to me, as well as telling me to subscribe and click the bell and subscribe again.
I think
And
I
click the
think
bell.
Double click the dislike for was it maximum impact?
Absolutely, yeah.
J Folk is could be telling us anything here.
He could literally
He's
be telling
like
us.
Quake means something totally different.
Yeah, basically, he's fobbing me off because I've told him his mum's crap in bed. Right.
God, no mum
I'm,
jokes.
I'm gonna.
ouch.
Hold back the
No,
mum
seriously,
jokes.
those Danish lads were brutal. I'm gonna get a beer out of the fridge for the commercial break.
Yeah, I've got mine.
That sound like a plan to you guys?
It's
Yeah.
time. I came back just at the right minute. didn't I?
We were waiting for you, you bald-headed twat.
Right, tricky. You're gonna have
Well,
to
give me a
hold the
minute.
post because I'm
I
going
have-
for a pish.
I had to go and give the baby an impy stout to get her to settle down. So you know, it's.
Is that your bottle of KBS gone?
Oh no, I wouldn't waste the KBS on her.
CBS. Okay. I'll be
On your dummy.
in a minute, J Fog. I'll be back in a minute. I'm just going for a lashing to get a beer.
Oh dear. I've got my commercial beer here.
Yeah, well, I'm ready to go. Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
I'm ready to rock. Do you know what, should we just get cracking on?
We
with our
might as well
commercials?
just get stuck into the commercials. Yeah.
Why not? Right, Rich, do you want to go first?
Go on then. Well,
What have you
I've got something a bit hardcore for as the baby's not sleeping so well. I thought I'd choose something that would help me sleep through, regardless of what's going on. I got kind of caught up by a bit of a hype train that our local bottle shop was running for
nice.
this beer that Polly's Brewery put out to celebrate their birthday.
All right.
So what we've got there, I don't know if it. Oh,
I can't. It's too shiny.
You're not going to be able to read it
drop.
because it's so shiny. But
See the water drop.
this is their birthday celebration beer. It's a quad IPA. So it's
What ABV?
it's just the 13%. I'll just wait for Owen to get his headphones on because he'll appreciate this.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's gonna.
What is it, Tricky?
I'm going in with the Polly's Quad IPA birthday
Oh,
beer.
you managed to get one. I read a review earlier on Craft Beer UK forum.
Yeah.
And there was a guy on there. He owns a bottle shop. Guy's name's Dave. He was saying that beer is absolutely amazing.
Well, that's good. I was hoping you weren't going to say it's absolute drain cleaner.
No,
but,
he said it's one of the best beers he's ever drunk.
Oh wow, shit. Okay, well I hope I like it. So yeah, it's a quad IPA, 13%.
What is it?
A quad IPA, 13%.
Holy shnipe.
Hopped with Chinook, Citra, Mosaic, Sabro, Simcoe, Nottingham, and London Ale Free. I guess they needed a couple of yeasts to make sure that this one fermented out. And yeah, it's Polly's birthday beer. So
it's their 3-year birthday, isn't it? It's hard to believe.
Yeah, something like
Polly's
that.
has only been around for 3 years.
I know. I was going to say. Polly's are kind of. I always sort of bang on about Track Brewing and Verdant will come up all the time as well. But I think Polly's are probably, a brewery that's in that kind of bracket for me in terms of like the UK breweries that are doing the this sort of stuff. The big hazy.
Pomona Island is another one that
Pomona
I'm
Island
absolutely loving at the moment.
Really good this year as well.
My Pomona.
So
very good.
Thank you. I'm here all week. Try the fish.
Smells very nice. It's not massively smack you in the face aromatic, but it's really pleasant. It doesn't smell quite as alcoholic as I was expecting for a 13% beer. But there's some nice piney kind of lemony, orangey. I think I'm probably getting more citra on the nose. Don't know. Maybe something else in there from the Sabro and the other stuff. But I'm just going to drink some anyway. So yeah, like I said, hopefully this will help me to sleep through the baby crying later.
Yeah, bottoms up.
Tricky J-Folk wants to know if there's a lot going on.
There should be with that many yeasts.
I would say
and
there's
that many
quite a bit
hops
going on, yeah. Now, I've got to say that normally I'm not always that keen on the sort of big triple IPAs and stuff like that, because I sometimes find the booze on them can be a little bit like, just sort of overpowers.
But you must be getting
other stuff
some
going on.
massive esters off the yeast with that sort of ABV.
Yeah, big time. There's definitely some.
I read that it wasn't a boozy though. There wasn't too much alcohol burn or anything.
I wouldn't go as far as saying it's not boozy, because you could definitely tell it's like a 10% plus beer, but it's a gentle kind of warm booziness rather than like a real kind of, it's hot. It's hot alcohol.
We're gonna have my favourite Tricky in about 20 minutes.
What, piss Tricky trying to fall asleep?
Really piss Tricky.
The one that's sliding off the chair.
Yeah.
You're not going to slide off that chair, though, are you?
It's incredibly rich and really like full, kind of sweet stone fruit flavour coming off of it. I think, like you said, the esters coming off of the London Ale 3 are almost kind of competing with the hops, I think, maybe in this. So just kind of sweet, juicy.
What sort of fruits are you getting, Tricky?
It's kind of sweet orange, peach, kind of maybe a bit of that kind of like nectarine almost kind of flavour to this.
Yeah. You getting any coconut?
I think I've said this before with Sabro beers. There's kind of like a sort of almost not necessarily coconut, but kind of indistinct kind of creaminess to it. That's,
I
you
get
know what I mean? Like not like you can kind of tell that it's maybe doing something in there, but perhaps not just straight coconut flavour.
Yeah, I definitely get a creaminess from Sabro. It's awesome.
But yeah, I mean that's pretty special. Very nice beer.
That's a once in a blue moon beer, isn't it?
Yeah, like I was saying, that the local bottle shop were like building a bit of a hype train for this one because they got a very limited number of them in.
Yeah.
And I just got completely hooked into that and was like on the website waiting for them to do the drop.
How,
on, like,
how much
5
was it a
o'clock
can?
on Thursday.
Must have been quite a bit.
It would have been the best part of 10 quid, but they sold it as like a 4-pack from Polly. So they sold it as like a 4-pack birthday box that was like 20, was it 20 quid or 25 quid? Might have been 25 quid. So, it was expensive. But I got like another 7% IPA with that and a couple of others. So,
nice.
As far as bottle shop prices go, it wasn't like completely ludicrous. I'd probably have thought twice about it if I was buying the can individually, because I would have been like, how much for a single beer? But
they did sell out. Polly's sold out that beer so fast. I even put a reminder in my work calendar because it went live like on a midday on a Friday or something, or a midday on a Thursday, I don't know. And I had a reminder in my calendar. And I loaded up the website, and then I ended up getting like distracted with something else and completely missed it. And I went back like 25 minutes after it went live, and it was sold out.
Yeah,
guys.
Yeah, you're getting that more and more nowadays on those sort of big brewery drops, where some stuff is like gone within
hype
5
train
minutes of it coming online.
You wait.
Yeah,
for
definitely.
my commercial beer, Tricky.
Can I go next? Can I go next? Can I go next? Because all I want to do is
Andy, what are you drinking?
I want to do this. I want you guys to look at this because I am drinking Spartan's Munich Helles. Okay? Now, Tricky, just hold your glass up to the camera. Just hold it up. Let us see the clarity. Look at the clarity on that.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can pretty much see straight through that.
Look at
There's-
that.
There's a slight difference.
Holy shit balls.
This one looks
Wow.
like a yogurt compared to yours.
In hell.
It's a fizzy yogurt.
Yeah.
Everyone likes fizzy yogurt.
I can
Got
literally
a
read the
boozy
computer
petit going on here.
I can
nice.
read
There
the
you go.
computer screen through this beer.
I mean, that's insane, Chris. Can we get the weird fat head thing you do?
The what now?
You put it up to the camera in your head.
I'll see if we can.
Nah, wrong glass.
Super
It is
clear.
just wrong glass. I brought my Sam Adams Boston Lager glasses down for some reason. I don't know why. This is literally the clearest beer I've ever seen in my life.
That is insane.
It's crazy. You see, just there. Yeah. This is absolutely phenomenal, and it's wonderful. My God, this is wonderful. I need like another 15 or 20 bottles of this because that's amazing.
What's the beer style?
Yeah, it's
Helles. It's
Oh,
a Munich Helles. And it's beautiful. And I'm pretty sure this has got spalt hops in it. And if it's got spalt hops in it, I need some spalt hops to basically try and reproduce this. Because that's amazing. This
Good.
is wonderfully clean. It's got a wonderful flavor profile. The
Spicy?
hops, a little, just a touch of spiciness. More floral than spicy. This, oh my good Lord. This is, if you don't have this beer, get this beer. This is amazing. This is an absolute, it's 5.2%. It's obviously German.
yeah.
And oh
like
my
breadiness.
good Lord. It's
You don't like
fantastic.
German beer, do you, Chris?
No, I hate them. But this is just amazing.
There you go,
I mean,
Chris.
I've got
Munich
2 more
Helles.
beers left from that bottle, from that box that came from Beerhawk, and
Is
they
it-
will be going tonight.
Is it
I love
crispy?
Helles.
I don't think there's any infection on this beer now, but it is smooth, crisp, drinkable, smashable, and I need another 40 of them.
Can I go next? Because
Go.
Owen's going to take a while.
Oh yeah, to be fair, I'm planning on going to sleep while Owen does his review.
I'm still drinking your grapefruit IPA.
So, I'm drinking the
Oh, the
sponsor of the
proof.
show, an avid listener. I've got a
That's a good point.
proof of concept. Double dry hop session IPA, and it is good. It's very clear, actually. I think because I've had it for a little bit. Come on, camera. There we go. It's quite clear. I think when it first arrives, it can be quite hazy, but it does clear up. But it's like a kind of grapefruit tangerine on the nose. And then when I've been drinking it, I get a bit of pine as well. It's like an orange grapefruit pine. The pine kind of finishes on the tongue. It's like that lasting thing is that kind of pininess on the tongue. And it's quite dry as well. It's quite crisp on the finish, which just makes you want to go for more. So, yeah, cracking beer.
Sweet.
Oh.
Sweet. I'm still waiting for a delivery from Harrison's Brewery. I've not paid for one. I'm just waiting for one because we keep pimping him up on this podcast. He's got to have had at least
support.
£1,000 worth of business from us. Do you know what I mean? We should get at least a case or something for nothing.
Hold on,
That's
wait,
wishful
better get
thinking,
that
innit?
back on.
Hey, there you go. You got
Preaching to the converted,
get that
perhaps.
sponsorship. I've got one of those hats as well. It's in the car. Otherwise, I would have gone and got it.
They're brilliant as well. They're super warm. I think, see, because it was such a fine wheat, the knit on it, they're just super. See, with the beach walks I do.
It
along
is a good quality beanie.
Yeah.
That's a shame because I don't have one, Harry. I don't have one of those lovely hats.
Hint.
Did you not about a year ago not drop into that one? No.
I obviously missed that one.
I'll be honest, Harry. I'm the commercial director for the Hop Edition. If you wish to
Penis
sponsor
is
an
so
episode,
cool.
just get in touch, mate. We can come to some arrangement since you're an
The
avid
commercial
listener.
director. I didn't know we had a commercial director. When
do
the fuck
now.
Did that happen?
Chris,
I
Harry
didn't realise
says
we
that
were
the
so
pine.
corporate.
Harry's saying the pine comes from the Simcoe, your favourite hop.
Yeah,
Ah.
not in my beer. It's definitely not in my beer.
But I think on
Love a bit of Simcoe.
a different but related subject, I think when all of this lockdown crap's behind us, I think a trip up to Harrison's in Retford will be
Down. You mean
will
down?
be
Trip
required.
down.
Down.
Trip down.
Well, down for you.
He's a shandy drinking southerner compared
That's a
to
great
me.
idea, Owen, and you can pick me up on the way, so I don't have to drive.
It's a little, you're a little out of the way, tricky, but for you, I'd do it.
Chicky,
No,
just
you'd
fly.
You'd be coming through that way to get up to Retford.
Would
Chicky, just
I?
get on a plane from.
Well, you'd be on the
M1?
you'd be on the M1 or the A1, so you're basically going past Bedford.
Tricky, just save yourself the hassle. Get on a plane at Bedford, fly to Doncaster, and I'll pick you up on the way down.
A
Done.
plane from Bedford. I didn't realise we had an
Well,
airport.
Luton, Bedford, whatever it's
Luton or
called.
Stansted?
Bedford Airport.
I'll just jump in a little Cessna out of Cranfield and parachute out over Wakey.
No, listen, you don't need to. There's
It's
an
like
airport.
GTA.
Don't kill any prostitutes.
I'm
Let's
coming,
go.
Retford.
Or you could just get the train, you know.
We'll get on the train.
That's an option.
Be quite an
Fuck you.
entrance.
You can
Be
pick
quite an
yourself up.
entrance. Straight through the doors of Harrison's.
Yeah, come through trailing smoke like one of those parachute
Oh,
team
dear.
people.
You could do a Martin Bailey and like take a narrow boat. You know,
Oh, how cool! That was my favourite.
5.5.
That was my-
months
That
to
was
get
my
from
summer
Bedford
holiday,
up-
sitting watching Martin's videos on that narrowboat, going to
It would
Harry's.
be a very convoluted route to get up to Harry's place from here, I think. Although we do
I
have,
think we need to do it.
there is a
Harry,
big
we're
canal.
planning on it. We're planning a
Going
Hop
through.
Edition exploit all the way down to your brewery, mate.
That would be class.
I think we should. I think that'd be absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
So there we go.
I might ride a New Forest Shetland pony and vlog it all the way. Just for fun.
Home, James, and don't spare the horses.
Anyway, what am I drinking?
Yeah, what are you drinking? Because it's
What
going to
am
be
I
a
Do tell,
dipper.
do tell.
I am drinking the hypiest of hypey beers of 2021 so far.
I bet I know
the
what he's
King
got.
of the Hill.
Does it begin with P?
Verdant
Yes.
Putty.
Oh,
I should have known.
This thing sold out in
lad.
I don't know, like 0.5 seconds on the Verdant website, and
Hype train.
I managed to get one of
Proper.
those from the local bottle shop as well. Actually, the last
yeah,
3
I
weeks I've already
actually
had that.
managed to get 2 of these from my local brewery, Unity. They have like a bit of a bottle shop as well.
Cool.
So I picked up a couple of cans, and I've literally poured it. I haven't smelt it. I haven't done anything. I mean, it's
No.
a big, juicy, thick, mega chunky double IPA at 8%.
Okay.
They always bang on 8%, aren't they? It's Mosaic, Galaxy, and Azaka. And it smells.
Dank.
Oh, it's dank. It's grapefruity. It's overripe mango. It's marshmallowy. If you can even smell
Vanilla.
marshmallowy.
Of course, you can smell marshmallows. Have you never had a child that's had marshmallows all over their hands? You can smell that from 2 time zones away.
Vanilla sweetness is normally marshmallow, is it not?
No, it's not that there's vanilla in it. I don't know what I meant by that. I think it's just going to be pillowy. I think
Pillowy.
what I meant was, can you smell
Yeah.
pillowy? It's because I think I've drunk so many big, thick double IPAs, I almost know what the smell is.
Mhm.
Anyway, I'll dive in.
Did anyone else bring anything to do whilst Owen was doing his review? Because I'm going to trim my fingernails.
What could I do?
Yeah, maybe you
We
should
do-
just go. Maybe you should just go fuck yourself.
Shall we do like the Times crossword or something whilst he's doing his review?
I could see what pressure's on my
It's good.
fermenter at the moment.
It's tasty. It's thick. It's juicy. It's there you go. Review done.
Oh.
Do you get a bit of a sort of like herbal thing going on with it as well as the fruitiness, Owen? Because I did notice.
Yeah, yeah, you do. I think I've seen a few complaints that it's a little bit green. It's a little bit hot bite. I didn't
find it
there is.
unpleasant, but
It's not unpleasant.
It just took me by surprise a little bit that it
is. It is very, very, very hoppy.
But that'll be a conditioning thing. So by now on, you might find that it's conditioned out because hot bite is a time thing. If you drink it too fresh.
I mean, when was this canned? It was canned on the 12th. So what's that?
12th of January.
Yeah, 12th of January.
Shit, that is fresh.
And I've got another can, and I will keep that can for a little while. I think I might keep that can in the fridge for 2 or 3 weeks just to compare. I think that probably will calm down a little bit.
Just from brewing your own NEPAs and stuff like that, you notice when you do big hop drops that it totally changes over the time. So it must be with the breweries as well. It'll be the same thing. It just depends how long they keep it in their store.
Yeah, I think Verdant they're like really. I mean, if you follow along with what they're releasing like double IPAs like every single week. I think
it's not sticking about.
Yeah, they're sort of pushing out a lot of big beers, a lot of very big hoppy beers. The quality is great. I mean, could they have held this a little longer before they canned it? Maybe. Is it just what you're going to get as a result of a really, really big hoppy beer with those sorts of hops, Galaxy and Mosaic? I don't know.
Right,
who cares? It tastes nice.
Out of 10. Come on. That's what we want to know.
Out of 10. Okay, so max out of 10, Owen.
Oh, I'm giving mine a solid 9. A solid 9.
To be fair, it does sound like a really nice beer. It does. And I know Owen's a big fan of his dippers, and I know that I give him a lot of shit. I love him to bits. He's got more hair on his head than I've got on my entire body. You know, it's a wonderful thing to have somebody who truly enjoys the big beers.
Oh yes, I like a big beer.
Trick out of 10.
Ooh, I'd probably go 8.5, just slightly lower than maybe it could have been because the aroma didn't blow me away quite as much as it did on the taste. So yeah, I'll go 8.5.
Andy,
2 seconds, hold on. It's a 10 from me, lads.
It's a 10 from the Scottish judge.
Is that your new wank sock?
Yeah, hang on a minute. We're lacking a wank sock this evening.
Where is the Regal wank sock?
Did you soil it free?
We can either go fluffy, furry, or we can go Regal.
I think it has to be Regal.
Oh.
And I'm going to give Spartan 9.6.
Wow.
Because there is a real diacetyl flavour in this beer.
Wait.
It's not entirely...
You're giving it 9.6 because it's got diacetyl in it.
It's not completely out of style. It's really absolutely bang on style. A little tiny bit of that kind of...
For a Helles? Did you say it was a Helles?
It's a Helles, yes.
Is that in the BJCP guidelines?
I don't give a shit about the fucking BJCP guidelines.
I mean, I know like for a Czech Pilsner they talk about diacetyl, but I'm not so sure they would for Helles.
I would happily sit down and drink.
I might be wrong.
50 cans or 50 bottles of this happily.
Yeah, that's the cool thing with the Helles. You just all the kind of, I don't know, the Marzin's the same. The Helles is even more. I don't know.
Smashable.
Got that kind of caramel sort of bite to it. It is super crushable, but I think the Helles is that sort of next. It's super crushable. Like I don't struggle with a stein of the Helles, I can sink it, whereas the Marzen is slightly longer.
Yeah.
But you still crush it. It's just
Absolutely.
Hellas is just super.
And then there's Tricky with his 14.8% quadruple IPA that's basically gonna make him dribble out of his nose and crawl out of the back door.
My face
Owen-
is just going to melt off before the end of the episode. That's what's going to happen.
No, Harry, no, I would not give Foster's 9.9 out of 10. I would give Foster's 0.9 out of a million. It's horrific. Come on, give me some fucking credit. In fact, you know what? Fuck you. You're not advertising on our podcast. So yeah, there you go.
Well, sorry, what?
Fucking hat off.
Bog standard lager, 9.6.
However, the 3-year-old
was that a 1?
the 3-year-old bottle of Bishop's Finger, I would have given that a 14. I mean, that was epic.
Oh,
That was some high grade shit.
that was mental.
The whole thing, the mental part about this is Tricky's drinking a beer that's on his style. Owen's drinking a beer that's bang on his style. Andy's
I don't know if quad IPA is my go-to style, to be fair. It's like
to be fair, you falling down, your face sliding off, and you sliding down the chair, you borderline alcoholic, is bang on style.
Well, that's maybe, but yeah.
It's just, this is the wonderful thing about this podcast, and this is what I love about the commercial break. Everybody brings something that they want to drink.
Yeah.
And that's the wonderful part about it. And this comes back to my original point on a very, very first episode that we did, which is this is the beauty of craft beer. This is the beauty of it. And this is why homebrew is so amazing. I love it.
I do kind of feel like I've got to upgrade this to a 9.7 because you've given a mass-produced lager a 9.6.
Is it mass produced?
This is not just any. This is the M&S.
I know. Well, it's not a fucking Carling, but it's a fairly widely available beer in Germany, isn't it? I'm pretty sure. Spartans.
I'm not being funny. Vacant Gestures are widely available beer in the UK.
Is it?
Can you buy it in lots of supermarkets?
No, but you can order it direct from his website. Everybody can do that.
Yeah, but there's a difference there, isn't there?
Yeah,
come on.
Well, I tell you what, you show me a supermarket in the UK that's selling Spartan Hellas.
No one.
I've not even sell this shit in Waitrose, bro.
No, but you've still managed to get it over here.
Of course I have. I ordered it from Beerhawk. This is not just lager. This is hand-pumped horse lager. It's amazing. It's outstanding. Have you never heard that skit on the? Because they do M&A's like, this is not just mayonnaise. This is hand pumped horse mayonnaise. It's fantastic.
I love Hellas. Hellas is probably one of my favourite lagers.
It's a great style.
Yeah. It's just got that touch of Munich malt in it. That
I could drink that all night. I really could.
Yeah.
So yes, I think that's the commercial breakdown. We've spent longer discussing the commercial break than we did pressure fermentation. So let's get back to the actual
let's do it.
The topic at hand. Let's get back to pressure fermentation and the pros and cons. Now, I did not actually write any of this.
Did I write it?
I don't know whether it was you or Owen, but for me,
I definitely did nothing. I
wrote all that. That's me.
Well, to be fair, Tricky, you've done nothing in this entire podcast except leave us to go and settle your daughter off.
Yeah, I did see the pros and cons. That was all my points.
So we still love you, you bearded, bald-headed muppet.
Aye.
Right,
I'm just here to drink the quad IPA and slide off the chair.
And then,
what did I miss?
and then melt.
Yeah.
Come on then, somebody do the old pros and cons thing. Let's go.
Can I do it since
go for it.
Yeah, okay. So I did a bit of research into this, obviously, because I'm not the big pressure fermentation geek.
Research or Pornhub research?
Reduced. So the first thing, reduced krausen, so less headspace required in your fermenter. And I think you guys kind of confirmed that.
You do get a smaller krausen, yeah.
Unless you
100%.
release the pressure, quickly.
Yeah.
And then you
it'll
get a
shoot back
really
up.
fucking big krausen
Then it's
that's
really
all over the
dangerous.
inside of your fermentation
Yeah.
fridge, your floor,
All over
It's
you.
on the ceiling usually.
It's
So that's interesting.
That's a proper top fermenting yeast when it's on the ceiling.
What would is fermenting your shed? Can you imagine doing that with a saison yeast? You'd come back and your shed would have turned into a pint.
Yeah. 'Cause
Oh,
season
hang
is
on,
pretty
hang
much
on,
of a
stop,
beast.
stop.
Stop.
We've got a visitor from America. Gnome Brewing has joined us. He is from the US of A. God bless you. God bless you. Anyway, carry on.
Cool. Next, pros con. Aroma compounds more likely to remain in the beer.
Absolutely. Yes, they are.
So you're trapping it in there. So your big, juicy IPA, dry hop sort of, that's going to be more likely to stay in rather than get blow out of that. Yep.
true. Fact.
Fact.
talked about
Definite
this.
fact.
We talked about this the other night. You know, like for the most part, the airlock. No, it's an airlock spunding valve.
Yep.
It's a no return airlock in effect. If you're dry hopping once fermentation is complete, which personally I think is the best approach to take. If Verdant do it, it's good enough for me. That you are effectively then dry hopping in, you know, a pressurized environment that is not releasing any air and all volatile
Well, it will over a
Gas.
certain
Can we
pressure.
say gas?
gas.
Thank you. Because air's a completely different thing.
No, I apologize, Chris. Just
Seriously.
we'll add that. Should we do? I think one episode we need to do like some sort of Chris bingo between the three of us. You know, like where like Chris corrects us on the pronunciation of something. Chris objects
Teacher,
to
mate.
the
Cut me
use
some
of an
slack.
unscientific term.
Oh, man. I'm getting me fucking
Chris-
coat. I'm off. Bye.
Chris rates a lager over 9.5.
I'm going to piss myself here.
You know, yeah, it will be Chris bingo. We'll do that maybe next Christmas.
Shall we print off some sheets so everybody can play?
Yeah, we'll do. I'll email it round. We'll post it on the Facebook link. We can all do
Something
it.
related to Yorkshire has got to be on there as well.
Yorkshire. Yorkshire.
He refers to everyone sort of
Below Sheffield.
remotely,
Southern
even
shandy
a few
drinkers.
miles, you know, south of him as being Southerners.
Yeah, we've had that tonight.
Yeah,
To be
We'll do
fair,
that.
somebody would be on a
It'd be
full
fun.
house right now.
it'd be fun. Anyway, sorry, I've really taken us on a tangent
Yeah.
there. What were we talking about?
Aroma compounds in the
Marzen.
beer.
Oh yeah.
Marzens.
he mentions Marzen at some point. on
I'm feeling
an
slightly picked on
American
you, lads.
IPA hot podcast.
Oh,
Yeah.
no. Oh,
Yeah,
dear.
that IPA sounds great, but this Marzen, that I just...
A bunch of cunts. I don't like it.
Oh, you're gonna give me heartburn.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Anyway.
So I'd say that's a big bonus. Big bonus.
You know, occasionally you have one of those moments where you regret setting something up. I'm really regretting setting up this podcast now.
Because you're
I'm-
getting ripped.
We all love you, Chris. But
Yeah.
I'm regretting even more inviting you two reprobates to be a part of it.
Oh.
Too late now.
And part of the fucking furniture.
we're in.
That's
We're
it,
in,
we're
the
in.
horse is bolted.
But this lager's really nice.
Trojan horse.
Yeah.
That's it.
I agree with you, Chris. Don't worry.
Love you, Andy.
Love you too, mate.
Where
So
were we
sweet.
anyway? What
Right,
were we
so
so
we were
talking
talking
next,
about dry
next
hopping,
pro,
right?
next pro.
Beer is naturally carbonated at the end of the
Yes.
process of pressure fermentation, assuming that you do it right.
So
Um,
that's an advantage, Chris, if you've got a bigger see for us with the 5 gallon, maybe not. But if you're doing bigger than 5, then
I agree.
it's definitely a that's a good thing. Like if you're doing a 1 barrel, 2 barrel sort of setup, maybe.
Yeah, even if
like
you've
at
got a
home.
half barrel, imagine how much carbon dioxide you're having to pump into a half barrel to get it to carbonate.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's a lot. That's a lot.
So it does make a lot of
It's-
sense. In commercial, if
Absolutely.
you're doing commercial, yes.
Even though
Definitely.
Harry says he doesn't do it.
Yet. I'm sure Harry says he wants to get uni tanks, so
He's going to
We'll
pull a
see.
unitank out of somewhere, isn't he? Let's face it.
yeah. Basically it'll be pulled out of his TIG welder, I'm sure.
Nothing wrong with a TIG welder.
That's that.
The next point on the list is spunding valves. What pressures work? Well, to be fair, it depends on the yeast and it depends on what you want from it.
Ask that. So you guys were saying about 5 to 10 psi, I think.
That's what most people normally ferment at. If you believe David Carr, and I love David to bits because he raises some fantastic points. But when I told him I was fermenting Voss at 22 psi, he did make some joke about that is the last, because I said, oh, it'll be right. It's perfectly fine. And he said, oh, yeah, that's the normal point that everybody makes before a YouTube video of something exploding. And I'll be honest, it's rated to 35 psi, so I know
Yeah.
I'm well within tolerance. And to be fair, they will take 60. It's only the spunding valve that pops at 35.
Yeah.
So sorry, not the PRV, not the spunding valve. So to be fair, it's absolutely fine. And we've already mentioned about the spunding valve being amazing for stopping suckback during cold crash. And if you've got a line and you can connect to disconnect to keep that pressure, you're perfectly fine. Do you know what I mean? There's absolutely no problems whatsoever with using a spunding valve. They're amazing. And you don't need a jar of star sand that looks like somebody's, dipped the cock into a jar and wiggled it around a bit with thrush. So, yeah, we could just move on from that. Chicky's giving me the funny
I
look
think
now.
so.
It was just a lovely thought.
Yeah, it was the visual. That was
Yeah, it was a thrushy cock in a jar.
I am somebody who supplies mental images to the world. That's what I am.
It was beautiful.
Chris,
Yeah.
I think the rest of the points in this list are we've covered already.
We have covered most of them.
But I think
How to do it?
Well, I think there was a nice little last sort of probably worth just covering off. What is the point? I think there were a lot of pros, as I said earlier, a lot of pros to using a fermentation vessel that you can pressurize, which we've just covered. But what's the point of actual pressure fermentation? What's the so what snappy finish of right? So you can produce lagers faster.
Yep.
Right. Massive.
I think you can produce them easier as well, which is the key.
Definitely.
It's kind of like
it's a lot less
much
faff,
less
right?
likely to get tripped up by issues with off flavors and stuff with lagers under pressure. It's just, I mean, for me personally, I've made like my best lagers by a country mile since getting an all-rounder and being able to do pressure fermentation and without any real particular effort other than learning how to actually set a spunding valve.
That's it. I think
I've not had any issues. I've done a lot of lagers now. This is me on my third or fourth in a row now, sort of thing, and I've not had any issues really.
But then I think you're well equipped, Andy, to be able to produce lagers because you're a serious home brewer, right?
Yep.
You've effectively got a microbrewery.
I've got no issues
And
with my
RO
water.
coming out of tap.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Whereas, in theory, if someone buys an all-rounder and they live in Australia or California or somewhere that's it's hot, you could produce lagers without even temperature control.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
ambient temperature,
right? In which case,
or anything.
You wouldn't have been able to do that otherwise.
Yeah.
So I think that's a massive perk for people.
I think the one is for commercial that we talked about is having that beer naturally carbonated for packaging. I think must be a massive bonus. So if you're not going to do carbonation if you're not going to do the bottle conditioning or can conditioned, you can have it so it's packaged without any yeast in the can, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Then that's got.
And I think in respect, like that's even worth having a fermenter that you can pressurize just for that benefit. What we probably haven't covered, and I don't think we've talked about yet, is the pro of being able to do oxygen-free transfers.
Yeah,
I was going to say that as well.
You know, like that is massive.
that one
Like
at all.
that is by easily, I would say, the best benefit, the most important benefit of being able to using a Firmzilla, for example.
I think it opens up a huge amount of beneficial processes that you can use in terms of closed transfer, pressure transfer, being able to purge your kegs with CO2 that you've generated yourself as well, which is saves you a little bit of money with the CO2, but also you could argue there's other benefits to that, like trapping some of the volatiles from the gas that's being vented into the keg that you then put the beer into later. All sorts of things that you can do, little tricks that you can then put to use because you've got pressure fermentation available to you. And in terms of being able to do a genuinely oxygen-free process all the way through, fermenting under pressure is really kind of like the keystone to being able to do that for homebrewing, as far as I'm concerned. I can't really see how
Lodo
you could
guys
do it
love
otherwise. Yeah, exactly. So, even if you're not using the pressure in the initial stage of fermentation, it's still a massive advantage when you're doing things like NEPAs and stuff like that, where you want to minimize that oxygen contact. But for any beer, really, in that context, I would say
it's almost like free CO2 as well, because I know, Tricky, you've done videos on it with purging kegs and stuff, and I seen Johnny Apples, John Boy, he also followed up with his own wee video on him showing him purging one of his kegs with Star San and all that. It's a kind of free CO2 thing. I know CO2, I mean, for me, it's what, 15 quid from Express Fuels, and it's just, the problem is getting it. So you have to go and get it.
Exactly.
So,
and you don't want to run your fucking gas bottle out purging a keg, and then not have any gas to serve your beer with, do you? So that's the other thing.
It does save in that sense.
No, I agree with that completely. And I would turn my camera so the guys on YouTube can see my setup, but it's currently covered in an absolute world of shit that I've had to move from this side of the shed to that side of the shed to be able to do the podcast.
Yeah.
Basically, I did that the other day. I have a American light lager, which is gluten-free or gluten-reduced, that I'm making for a friend of my wife. I know her pretty well. She's a good girl, but she's gluten intolerant. So I've got the Clarity Firm or NBS Clarity, whichever one it is, which I add, makes it gluten-free. And I kind of filled a keg, which I'm going to put the beer into to carbonate. Filled it up with Star San, and then basically just connected up I've got a little rigmarole. So I've got a line inside that connects up to the spunding valve, comes out the outside. I purge that off and then connect it up to the keg. Push all the Star San out. Star San's cheap as chips. Push it into a fermenter. Job done. If I'd have organized myself a little bit better, I could have pushed it out into another keg. It would have been perfectly fine, wouldn't have been a problem. But it emptied the keg in about 22 minutes because I'm fermenting it out with Uber. So it was banging like a shithouse door, and I emptied that keg in next to no time.
I think Johnny says he has took about 2 to 3 hours. So there you go.
He needs to play with Voss.
He needs to
play with Voss. The fastest I've ever emptied one was 9 minutes with Voss.
Wow.
Yeah. It literally was like, when you first potty training a kid and they sit down, they have that first piss and it's like a fire hose. Just like that coming out of the keg. It's amazing. You can always rely on me for the mental image, can't you?
That's a belter.
But it was corking, and to be fair, that keg I know right now is full of CO2 and nothing else. Yeah. So as far as I'm concerned, that's absolutely fine for me. And I'll just transfer direct into that, not a problem. I'll charge it up with a bit of CO2 to equalize the pressures, but after that, it's golden. It's on its own. You know what I mean?
Tricky. Is that a can of light bulb?
Nearly. It is a Verdant, but it's not light bulb.
No,
nice.
Nice.
Rustling substance. Citrum motuica.
I love to rustle substance.
Don't we all?
Good thing. Shall we move on to how to actually do this pressurized fermentation? Because we're 50 minutes in and we haven't done that yet. So the reality is you need some very specialized kit to be able to do this. Americans, and I love the Americans because they give us so many laughs. They will say, just ferment out in a corny keg that you've chopped the dip tube off. No, just fucking no. Okay. If you want like 15 liters of beer going into your keg at the end, then you go for it. But the reality is, no, don't do that. Buy a proper piece of kit. Buy a Firmzilla all-rounder. Buy a Firmzilla Generation 2. Buy an SS Brewtech Unitank. Spend, your kid's college tuition on a Brutals F100 or F80 or F40 or whatever it is. You can, sell a kidney and buy a Spike Flex or Flex Plus. All of these will do the job. They are, what do you mean some states hate? I've got loads more if you want more. But there's a lot to do with these fermenters as far as the design. The vast majority of the pressurized fermenters or pressurable fermenters are stainless, but there is a really good range of PET fermenters with the Firmzilla stuff. What was the other one? The Fermentosaurus. That was the first one, wasn't it?
King Keg. Is there like a
King Keg Junior?
I've got the Junior, but I'm using it as an actual keg.
Yeah.
And I'm actually really enjoying seeing how quickly the beer goes down.
Or shockingly,
it's actually going down really. That's the Hellas, and it is going down rapid. So a clear keg is quite cool, but so how you've been slagging me that I don't actually have all the stuff to do pressure fermentation. I actually do have everything. I've got spinning valves. I've got the keg king thing and all that sort of thing. So,
but the issue with that using that for pressure fermentation would be the same as using the point that Chris just made around using a keg, right? In the fact that you would end up losing such a massive volume as a result. It's not big. It's not big enough.
It's 20 liters, so you're talking maybe 4-gallon batches and that thing.
Yeah,
to allow have your headroom and all that. So,
like 4 gallons is like 15 steins full. It's not worth it, is it?
I mean, I'll reflect. When I got my Firmzilla.
Yep.
My Generation 1, Generation 2 Firmzilla, which is the one with the collection jar and the butterfly valve and everything. That was a major game changer in my home brewing.
Yeah.
Major, big game changer. I went from using just plastic buckets.
Oh, that's
or even, I think I might have even had a stainless steel bucket at that point.
I moved.
Is that the brew builder one that you had?
Yeah, that's the brew builder, just like stainless steel flat bottom.
Yeah,
I still use now. Like if I'm
more stuff.
If my brews are overlapping, and the Firmzilla is full of beer, whatever. But it was a big game changer because it's just so flexible, and you've just got so many perks to be able to purge, and you can just do closed transfers and oxygen-free transfers and all that good stuff.
Would you say that was a game changer in terms of the quality of the actual output, or just in terms of the ease of use and process and stuff that you could do? Or
no, I'd say quality
both?
of beer. Quality of beer, absolutely, yeah. And I think going back to my whole sort of, does it make the beer better? Like that is such an inexpensive purchase to make your beer better, in my opinion, is getting something that you can, not so much just the pressure fermentation thing. For me, the only benefit of pressure fermentation really is going to be being able to produce lagers faster. Right, that's probably.
What about we talked about locking in, the aroma and we're all.
But that's not pressure. Sort of that's not pressure fermentation.
No, I know, but it keeps.
But
it does the job though.
I don't know. I think you can still lock in aroma from hops that have been in during the boil. Like your.
Yeah, that's true.
Whirlpool hops and stuff. Yeah. So we're not. You don't want to just limit that purely to dry hop aroma. Obviously, it's important for that too. But
Yeah, that's a
Whirlpool
good shout.
hops as well.
Whirlpool hops, like especially for your Neepers and stuff, that's going to have a big impact on that.
But you're still, I mean, you're
that's
still
the stuff that's
losing.
getting blown off when if you've got a fully open fermentation. That's the stuff that you're going to smell all around the room if your FV is just open to the air. So
That's true. Yeah, I think a spunding valve probably releases slightly less of those volatile oils. So there's a benefit there. But
does it? So, like, just going back to this, does it actually help to like stop those volatiles coming out of the liquid? I mean, that's probably a question for Chris, really. Or
it would depend entirely on what pressure you were using during the ferment and how you got it to that pressure.
Yeah,
because those volatiles are going to come off early. So as you put it into the fermenter, you're going to get some coming off then. During the first phase of yeast growth, when they're not really fermenting too hard, you're going to get some come off then. So if you don't have your spunding set within probably an hour of putting it into the fermenter, then they're going to come off. They're going to fill that headspace. And then as the CO2 comes in, you're going to get a lot of those pushed back into the beer.
But don't forget,
I would have thought.
You've still got a lot of gas coming off. I mean, obviously, it holds the first bit of pressure, the gas that's off, but then it's still obviously gassing off.
It is still gassing off, but
there's
during
still
the
a lot of
pressure
CO2
build,
coming off.
but it depends on the solubility of the compounds, doesn't it? So is CO2 more soluble than those hop oils? I think that's what it comes out. That'd be a really interesting piece,
Yeah,
to be fair.
It is. I know what you mean. Yeah.
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 Graham, yes, it would work. Yeah, it would. That's what we all do.
What's the question? You can't say...
He says he's considering attaching his spunding valve to a keg that's sterilized and connected to the fermenter, just so he has a keg to pressure and ready for transfer. Would that work? Yes, because I do it. Owen does it. We all do it. Tricky does it as well. You basically purge the keg with the pressure that comes off the spunding valve, and then it fills up, and it's at pressure, and you're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, I don't do that.
So yeah, that does work. I need to siphon the python or drain the slug, whichever way you're looking at it. Give me a minute. Carry on, for fuck's sake. Don't just sit there.
For anyone that isn't British, Chris is going for a piss.
Yeah. So unitanks. No, I just want to talk a wee bit. I don't know how much you went into it on the different fermenters, but
not really.
Not really. I think Chris just covered the various different versions.
I'm a bit of a gear hooer, and I do love my shiny, and so
he's a proper hooer.
Pure hooer. But what about the new Brutals F40?
Oh mate, that is a piece of engineering right there.
Oh,
you're talking my language, Andy.
I seen a picture of it, and it looks good.
It does. I mean, the whole range is pretty sick. I mean, it has more holes than a fucking sieve.
He's talking about.
Yeah, but it's like, I mean, I could see you guys are pretty much sold on your pressure fermenting, I would say. And if the money did become available, would you?
I mean, yeah, if money wasn't a limit, right? Which, yeah, I see as it is. But if it wasn't an issue, then yeah, I'd have loads of them. But the thing is, am I going to pay? I don't know, like a grand,
1,200.
Let's say grand, 1,200 quid for a 40-litre stainless steel fermenter.
You could go B80. You could get the bigger one.
Probably not,
or F80.
Because I could buy 10 Firmzillas, which would probably, if I just replace my Firmzilla every time I needed to, I'd probably get like 20 years out of those.
What we didn't talk about was having that tri-clamp fitting where you can do your oxygen-free dry hops. So you set up with a sight glass, and you've got a
but it's
butterfly
just,
valve, and you
it's
can
just,
purge that compartment,
but
and
why,
then drop your dry hops because it's
yeah,
awesome.
but we talked about the other day, right? You can get
Because
a
I've literally got
steel
this
tea
setup.
piece for £3. Attach a Coca-Cola bottle with your dry hops in it, with a
magnet,
ball lock valve, and you
Yeah.
can basically create the same thing.
Yeah, but it's
for like
this is
for a
like,
tenner.
well, Owen, why have you not got, a Robo Brew instead of a Brew Tools B80? It's the same thing. It's like your fermenter is either, what do you want sort of thing in quality.
I think the utility of your brew day is more fundamental than the importance of something that just holds a liquid whilst you're fermenting.
Yeah.
And the Firmzilla, I personally think is an ideal solution. There's so many perks to it. I'm not going to rule out not buying one.
You still have to open it to put your dry hops in.
Yeah, but it's like
you don't have that sort of oxygen-free dry hop solution yet.
But how much oxygen are you actually going to get into a beer?
That I know you might go into that. That's
when
cool.
you take the lid
which
off.
Firmzilla are we talking about here? Though?
Here's the thing. I'm just going to step in right here and hit you all with some science. I apologize for interrupting you, Tricky, but
sorry,
this is
we were talking gear porn.
Now, if you take the lid off of a beer which has been pressure fermented, as soon as you take that lid off, you're going to get off gassing.
Yeah.
So you're not going to have a massive amount, but you are going to have positive pressure within the fermenter, which is going to be pushing gas out of the fermenter, which means the oxygen ingress is going to be minimized. So it doesn't matter which version of the Firmzilla you're actually using. In fact, if you're using the Gen 1 with the big thing on the bottom, and even if you attach the two disconnects or the two carb caps to either side and flush that with CO2, there's still going to be dissolved oxygen within the hops. So you can't do anything about that. So as soon as you open that butterfly valve and it goes in, you then can't pressurize it as high because that canister at the bottom.
But we know the other thing is, try to get those hops in, Chris. Try to get those hops back into the main body. You find that it sticks at the bottom.
Yeah,
really,
you want to be putting. Say that's an issue.
You want to be putting your hops in through the top, through a drop.
This is the point that I'm trying to make. The point that I'm trying to make is, if you've got positive pressure within that and you've got off gassing and you've got gas coming out of the lid, which you are going to have, because if you've got dissolved CO2, as soon as you release that pressure, that gas comes out of solution.
The whole thing was, I was
one of them
saying,
things, isn't it?
The cool thing with it, see the stainless fermenters or the stainless unitank or like the Chronicle I've got is the tri-clamp fittings. It allows you to do all these cool things where you can have oxygen-free dry hop. You can fashion up stuff with butterfly valves and CO2 ports, and you can put hops in it, blast it with CO2, and drop it with with the butterfly and drop it all in. You can do cool stuff like that. Whereas the kit, what I'm saying is, how awesome. I mean, like all rounders and all that sort of thing, they're all awesome bits of kit, but they're not that sort of. They don't have the tri clamp.
You don't need the tri clamp.
I know you don't need. You don't need.
No, I agree. I agree with you, Andy. Like, there are some cool stuff you can do.
Yeah.
But I think it's just like, is it gonna make better beer? Like, to what degree is that gonna make better beer? I've seen the Brew Tools hop drop thing, and it's like £10 of stainless steel and glass and butterfly valves and all the rest, and it probably costs you, like 500 quid. And you're like, but what am I actually getting for that 500 quid? Like, it's a lot of shiny. It's a lot of shiny, and it looks very cool. And if I was a millionaire, I'd be buying one, hands down. I'd buy one. But
let's just put this into perspective. Graham Hughes has just made a fantastic point. Some people put more value on their hobbies than others.
Yes.
With this hobby, you don't have to spend a lot, but it is nice to have cool toys.
Yeah.
And when all that's said and done, Tricky bought a new house so he could upgrade his brewery. I mean,
It was the
if you
first
look-
thing on the list,
Yeah,
to be honest.
that
How
was-
big
that
is the
was what-
garage?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
is there room for the
If-
brewery? That one's off the list. We can't move there. Sorry.
If we look at this from a
Game
logical
over.
standpoint, okay, I agree entirely with what Owen is saying. If I had an unlimited amount of money in my pocket, you bet your fucking ass I would have whatever Brutal's version fermenter with the shiny bits and the clamps and the tri-clamps and the butterfly valves and all the other shit. I'd have 4 of them. I'd have them in a custom
4 of
built
them.
cold room. I would
Glycol.
have everything. If money was no object, every fucking one of us would be running 1-barrel uni tanks. Let's face it. Okay? Money is an object. I don't know how much you spent on your chronicle, whatever you want to call it this week, but I can guarantee you it was a damn sight more than me, Owen, and Tricky spent on our all-rounders.
Yeah. Yep. Agree.
And that's what it comes down to. It is funds in your pocket, okay? And we've just hit 2 hours and 5 minutes, and I don't think
Nice.
we've covered hardly any of the how to do it. We've been arguing about the why to do it. Okay.
I think
So-
we've covered some of it. Kind
Yeah.
of.
Yeah.
No,
I'll give
We're
you
on,
some
we're on fermenters.
And an addition to the how to do it in terms of what we've just been talking about, like the oxygen-free dry hopping thing.
Yep.
Yes, obviously you have that positive pressure with an all-rounder that is there when you take the lid off initially. But if you want to like double down and make sure, it's actually really easy just to put a really low level pressure onto the dip tube and bubble CO2 up through it, and then you're maintaining positive pressure out of the fermenter for the whole time,
Exactly.
however long it
braces.
takes you to throw it
Yeah,
in.
yeah.
And I've done that before, and it's like, okay, I can literally see the gas coming up out of it. So there's no way
Yeah.
oxygen is going in because it's
Yeah.
still CO2 coming out.
Well, it is.
There
It
you go.
is still going in,
Well,
but it's not going in at the rate it would be if you didn't have that
but
connected.
if you're maintaining positive pressure out of a 100% CO2 environment, it's going to be
Does
pretty
anyone have
minimal, isn't
does
it?
anyone have like a dissolved oxygen meter? I mean,
I have 3 at work.
they're only 300 quid, so you know.
Although I do have access to one actually because of the work that I do for my father-in-law. So I've actually got a proper gas meter as well that I could measure the oxygen level within the fermenters with quite easily.
I could bring one home from work and do that as well, but I don't.
I'm not going to do that, by the way. I'm just saying.
Earlier on, you mentioned Trillium and Treehouse. And I think maybe we were going to circle back. You mentioned about Trillium, and we were going to circle back to the subject of, and I think we actually covered it right in terms of adding pressure when dry hopping. But apparently, the dissolved oxygen level of the beers recorded in, I think it was Trillium, and I read an article about this, was something like 1 ppm. Just to put that into context, a ppm is parts per million. There was one bit of oxygen.
Give me a second. Let me do the maths. I'll tell you exactly how many atoms of oxygen that is.
Which is practically unheard of in any beer production. And
you've got to say, for the type of beers that they're making, though, one of the biggest advantages that obviously, other than it being just super fresh and whatever, is that
6.023.
I imagine a Nipah or something from Trillium is going to have such a better shelf life compared to other breweries who aren't doing that kind of thing. I mean,
it was
that would be interesting to see what a like a 6-month-old can of Trillium versus 6-month-old can of a brewery that doesn't do any of that kind of process would be like.
So that is, if you had 23 liters of beer, that would be 23,054,386,000 molecules of oxygen, which isn't very much.
Would it wreck your Nipah?
I was going to fuck your Nipah right up, but
we're struggling with context there.
Okay, so Avogadro's number is 6.023 times 10 to the 23. and that's the number of atoms per mole. So if we work out on a parts per million and we use Avogadro's number to extrapolate down, then we work out that it's not very much at all.
What have moles got to do with it?
Oh my good God. Okay, so if you have a molar solution of an acid...
I was joking, Chris.
Oh, come on. Don't do that to a teacher, man. I will teach your ass. Silence at the back.
Oh, tiny blind vermin.
That's good.
Good. What else have we got to cover with practically doing it? We've done
No, we don't have to cover anything else.
No?
We do have to cover dry hopping ideas.
Yeah.
Because I came up with an idea of a magnetically mounted, magnetically releasable dry hopping apparatus which you could stick to the top of your fermenter, assuming it's plastic and not that metal shit that Andy's got, and then you could simply remove a magnet and open a door and allow your dry hop to drop straight into your beer without even opening the top. And I know Santi's going to listen to this, and I know he got rid of his 3D printers, but I bet you wish you didn't right now, didn't you, Santi? Because we need somebody to 3D print us something with a volume of exactly 700 milliliters to allow us to put a 500-gram dry hop into our all-rounders.
I like that you've checked the volume of a 500-gram dry hop, especially for that.
I am such a geek.
Brilliant.
Literally, there's nowhere to go from that. I'm a geek.
No, there's not. It's
No,
just,
I've got no answers. The
yeah,
man speak truth.
do it.
Exactly. I know what I am. You know, I'm wearing an Atlanta Falcons hat. I don't know where Gnome Brewing's from, but I'm guessing it's not Atlanta because he's not said anything about my awesome Falcons hat. But yeah, I think that the dry hop idea is you can use a bag. Andy, you mentioned this one, didn't you? Using a hot bag and just mounting it in place with neodyms.
Yeah, and then pull the magnet in the bag. Sorry, the bag just drops.
Absolutely. But there's
like we say though. I mean, you know, is this kind of overthinking it when you're trying to, like, you know,
it probably is,
create this apparatus within the fermenter when we've already described various methods of putting it in that is basically going to be virtually oxygen free anyway.
Just brew a Marzen and you don't need to bother with this nonsense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no post boil hops whatsoever.
No,
that's the way to go.
Not. Yeah, indeed.
60,
and it
15,
tastes better.
done.
Rhode Island, isn't that up there? Is that up the top end near Maine? Rhode Island? I don't know. Anyway, don't matter.
In New York, isn't it?
Rhode Island.
It's up the top near Maine. The top of New York State, up that way. It's cold in the winter, hot in the summer, and it's far too close to the Great Lakes for my liking, if it's where I think it is. So, observations and funny experiences.
Yeah, just up from New York.
Owen mentioned this one because I thought that this was an absolute cracker. Was it Owen? Yeah, the Krausen hangs around for longer under pressure.
True, I did mention this. It was just a purely anecdotal observation. It does. I think, like, not necessarily when you're fermenting under pressure throughout, but at some point you add pressure during the fermentation, is the Krausen does seem to just hang around for a lot longer than compared to not using pressure fermentation at all.
Yeah.
And I think our experience collectively, when we talked about this before, was that is something that you guys have observed as well.
Yes. Definitely.
I definitely found that. And I found I had to punch my fermenter to get it to drop.
Yeah, I found the same, that you just got to, like, give it a good rock. And then it's so visually, because often the Firmzilla, whatever version you have, is clear, which is another massive, amazing perk of those fermenters.
You don't get that with a stainless steel fermenter.
No, you don't.
Because it's
can't
great.
See what's going on.
Because you can see what's going on.
That's maybe why I love the tilt
for ages.
Maybe why I love the tilt so much. You know what I mean?
Come on.
You can see what's going on, but of course sometimes it misleads you into thinking, oh God, the fermentation's still, what is going on with this beer, and because the yeast cake is still like super thick at the top, and then eventually you get to the point where you're like, this is ridiculous, I'm going to give it a shake, and then all of a sudden it just like it disappears and drops and falls through the beer. So I guess we concluded that it's probably because of the CO2 that is dissolved within the beer because of the pressure.
Yeah,
that it's just keeping the yeast cake from naturally falling. Gravity is not applying itself in its normal
how
way.
cool would that be for top cropping though?
Well, it is super useful for top cropping, I guess.
You could pop the top, scoop a couple of things off, stick it in a sterilized jar, and away you go. And then put the lid back on, punch the side of your fermenter, and set it to cold crash.
I love a bit of top cropping. It's a good way of collecting yeast, actually.
I like crop tops rather than top cropping. Anyway, I don't wear them myself.
Next podcast, mate. I'll put one on for you.
That's for the summer podcast. Chris rocks
No, I'm going
top.
Totally topless. I'm going to show off
baby.
and my man boobs.
You probably have to.
After your arse shots, I don't know if I want to see that.
I'll fire up the moobs. We'll go with it.
You wait until the summer podcast when he's in his brew shed and it's like 38 degrees or something. He's like
speedos and nothing else. Speedos and flip flops.
We were
and a hanky with knots on his head.
We were talking the home of Family Guy.
Absolutely, yeah. Massachusetts, Boston. So basically, just slightly north and slightly west of New York State, isn't it? Explosion stories.
Yeah,
we've had some crackers here. Incidentally, if you want to watch a really, really funny video, go and watch Johnny Birkland, aka Dr. Hans Brewery. Go and watch his video of trying to dry hop a pressure fermented beer, because it is fucking funny. It is so funny watching him try and get the lid back on that fermenter when he's dropped that dry hop in.
I remember. That's an old one as well, isn't it?
It should have the Benny Hill music on it.
Well, part of the
So
problem
funny.
is Dr. Hans was always like, he's quite an extremist, and he's like, right, well, they're rated to 35 psi, so I will ferment at 35 psi. And then you realize that, you go to take the lid off and, you've got 35 psi's worth of carbonation coming out of the beer at you whilst you're trying to dry hop it. It's like
it is
like a volcano.
It's quite hilarious, the amount of beer that literally jumped out of that fermenter. It's brilliant. There were also frequent reports of the collection jar exploding on the Gen 1 and Gen 2 Firmzillas.
Yeah. If you shut it, I take it if you shut that valve, like the butterfly, and then the pressure keeps fermenting in there.
This is what people don't get about they a lot of people, like homebrewers buying these Gen 1, Gen 2 Firmzillas, are just forgetting the concept of physics. And they're like, oh, I'll just close off that valve and then I'll just leave fermenting beer in the collection jar. And then they're like, oh, that jar. And in fairness, they are very clear, Kegland, that the collection jars are not pressure tested, right? They're not designed for pressure. They're quite brittle. I've broken one just trying to screw it off using the little
tool.
Not even using the tool. I've tried to sort of take it off with my hands, just using the bit that sticks out for the carb caps.
You snapped one?
I've snapped one off, yeah.
Jeez, have you got arms like Garth or something?
Well, yeah, I'm a big lad. What can I say? Which was a real pain in the ass because I had to replace it, but I have snapped one off and they are brittle. And if you're not careful, they will explode if you shut that butterfly valve.
Again, to back up Andy on this one, this isn't a problem that you have with stainless steel fermenters.
No.
Because if you can snap stainless steel with your hands, you've got no business trying to brew beer. I'll be honest. You know, your name's Garth and you're a demigod. So
Yeah, it's pretty solid.
if you close off the butterfly valve with fermenting beer in it, it's gonna go boom. Do you know what I mean? You're essentially creating a small bomb at the bottom of your Firmzilla. It's not going to end well in any way, shape, or form. And we've already talked about Dr. Hans with his dry hopping after the beer is carbonated. It's going to do its best to redecorate your fermentation chamber. Is what it's going to do. It is quite funny. But the whole thing that we've been talking about through this entire podcast is, are there benefits to pressurized fermentation? And the answer is a resounding yes. Can you do it in many different ways? Again, a resounding yes. Can you spend thousands of pounds doing it? Yes. Can you do it for under 100 quid? Yes. Is there a best way to do it? No, there isn't, because it depends on you as a person. It depends on the way that you want to do it. And it depends on the amount of available disposable income that you have. Is it something that you should consider doing? And I think that, again, is a resounding yes, because close transfers, pressurized fermentation, oxygen free, everybody at the moment seems to, well, except for me, because I love, German Helles beers, but everybody seems to love this idea of super hoppy beers. And if you're doing super hoppy beers that you don't want to turn purple, then I think you really need to, or brown, depending on whether, your oats percentage, you really need to be doing some sort of closed transfer. And you're only ever really going to get a true closed transfer if you're using a piece of equipment designed to do closed transfer. You can fudge it. I know Tricky's fudged it on his Speedle on a couple of occasions.
And the stainless one as well.
And the anvil, yes, sorry.
If you use if you put a balloon-like contraption on so that you collect the CO2 for when you're cold crashing and it sucks it back in, you can do a pretty close to properly closed transfer just under gravity, I think. But there's always going to be the disconnection of hoses and stuff like that, and plugging things in where you are, for even a split second, opening the system to atmosphere. So it's not truly 100% closed at all times, but you can get near as damn it, but it's not. Under pressure is a different kettle of fish, because you can literally plug it in with a disconnect, and that's the first time that it sees gas of any kind, and it's CO2.
And to be fair, for those of us who run Firmzillas, do you guys purge your line with CO2 before you connect it?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And then do you purge that line with beer before you connect it to the keg?
No.
I'll normally let it run through. Yeah, I'll put finger on the disconnect until it comes through to the end.
And it all comes, and it all comes down to, just that care of your beer. Now, Andy, we've given you a lot of shit during this podcast, Mr. 2 PSI Max Boost. But the reality is, you are taking precautions to ensure that your beer is not oxygenated.
Yeah.
You can't do what we can do. We can ferment at 30 PSI if we want to. But you don't need to do that. No. As long as you've got that closed transfer when it comes to the end, you've got your disconnect on your tri-clamp, which I know you're very proud about. I remember seeing the pictures. And you're protecting your beer from the worst enemy that it has, which isn't fascism, although fascism's a pretty shitty enemy. It's oxygen. And for that, we've gone down the route of pressure fermentation. You can do it cheap, you can do it expensive, but as long as you're protecting your beer from oxygen, I think you're fine.
Yep.
I think we can leave that there, don't you?
I think so.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
That seems like a fine swan song there, Chris.
Congratulations, Tricky, for at least an hour and 40 minutes of this podcast. You said fuck all.
Cheers to that, sir. I think as soon as he finished that quad IPA, he was all over it.
Yeah, exactly. It took some loosening up. So, thank you very much, guys, for listening. That is episode 21 in the bag. If you've got any questions whatsoever, I think you need to send us a message on BrewTube or any of the other groups that we're a member of. Send us a message on the Hop Edition Facebook page. Send us a message on YouTube. And at this point, I'm not going to do what everyone else does, which is say, like and subscribe. If you want to, go for it. If you don't, I don't care. As long as you listen to us when we're doing it live, everything's fine. So yeah, this is the Hop Edition's explanation of pressure fermentation, including a free biochemistry lesson from me. This is us signing off. So say goodbye, guys, and don't just do that thing where you wait.
Goodbye.
Over and out. See you later, guys.
Owen, don't.
Goodbye.
Seriously.
Bye, guys. Sorry, no.
Have you ever had an atomic?
Somebody had to do the awkward silence, didn't they? It's like a tradition now.
I did it.
It's a tradition for the podcast.
Have you ever had an atomic wedgie? Because your pants are going over your head at the beer festival, mate. Right, take it easy, guys, and we will catch you later.
Bye.
Adios.
Oh man, you're such a twat, Owen.
Please don't do that thing. Oh, I'm definitely doing that.
You
thing.
really did set him up for that. It's like tee me up for just
tee me up for the annoy Chris thing. Yeah. That was fun. I enjoyed that, guys.
Good pod.
Yeah, man.
We're still live on YouTube, by the way.
Awesome. It's fine. For those of you guys on YouTube right now, welcome to the additional episode.
The after party.
The after party.
Where we basically saved the podcast.
The exclusive after party.
To us do the same thing every week.
Can I just say, guys,
save this?
This is supposed to be a Hefeweizen.
That's really cool. Sure it's not Crystal Weizen?
Nope. It is a Hefe.
Did you roll the can around a bit before you?
Yeah, that's true.
I shook that
Did you
bitch
turn it upside
like
down?
it owed me money.
Yeah.
You turn it upside down.
It's not bad. I mean, I'm drinking it on a Saturday, so I feel bad that it's called Wednesday, but...
I need to get the chat up on YouTube.
Are you editing this one, or am I tricky?
Is anyone still watching?
I'll
still
do
get
it.
10 people.
You want to do it?
Well, unless you want
still
to
on?
practice with Pro Tools, like I don't mind.
Who's still on in the live
Nobody
chat?
wants to practice with Pro Tools, mate.
I'm having an oatmeal porter. A discount price. Oatmeal porter.
Right, I'll export it as a WAV then, so that you can do the editing, mate.
Oh,
Cool.
Who's getting the files?
Tricky is.
Right, okay.
Send to me.
Where did I save it on my desktop?
I broke the seal way too early today. Normally, I get to about 2 hours before I need a piss.
Yeah, I did the same. I realised I hadn't drunk enough
Once
water.
it's gone.
Right, I've exported that as WAV.
Tell you what, the problem with drinking a quad IPA as your commercial break beer is everything else just tastes like water afterwards. It's like fucking... This, I was like, it's not even registering any flavour at all.
Mental.
Google Drive.
I'm compressing mine at the moment, but
Yeah, we should probably just set up like a shared Google Drive folder or something that we can just drop it into, and then it's like
done.
so we don't have to look around for emails and shit.
Yeah.
That would make sense. Yeah, that would make sense.
Richard, you set that up.
Now that I mention it, though, I don't know
How to do it?
how much. Well, no,
I can do a
now to do
folder.
it, I don't know how much space I've actually got on my Google Drive to.
Well, I've got a terabyte on mine, so shall I do it?
You got a terabyte. Okay.
Yes, I have
yeah,
a
you
terabyte of
do it.
Google Drive space. I got it
Yeah,
free.
set up a Hop Edition shared folder with subfolders for episodes, and then we can just drop files into that.
Okay, give me a minute.
So that's probably actually genuinely the most difficult part of doing the editing is finding the fucking files a couple of days afterwards. I'm like,
You don't
did he
have the
send that
ability
me?
to
I
use
don't
a
know.
search function then?
Well, yeah, but that's long.
At the moment, I'm just going to chuck up my drive.
Don't do that. Wait up.
All right. If we still get anyone in the chat, because I don't see any new messages
I
appearing.
don't think anyone's saying anything.
Yeah, no
I
one's
think
saying
everyone's
anything.
fucked off.
Well, it
Well,
says there's 11 people watching still.
There's 11
or is
people,
that-
yeah. Any questions on pressure fermentation? Or in general?
Say something.
Yeah, everyone will just start dropping off now.
This is like one of my lessons at college
Yeah, no
online.
one's chatting back.
Please speak to me.
Okay, there's if you
Just
guys
say
name
something.
it correctly. So, Owen, can you name your file episode 21 Owen? Andy,
Martin Underwood's in the house.
episode 21 Andy, and I'll name mine episode 21 Chris.
If you emailed out a link then or something.
You've got it. You've got access to the folder.
Harry Brew's still in the house, as is Graham.
How can you see?
How do you
They're just coming up on the chat.
how
Are
do
they
you
talking?
add
Yeah, they're on the YouTube chat now.
I can't see any. The last one was the Gnome Brewing, south of Massachusetts.
Well, you're way behind.
Why is mine not updating? Right. No?
It's funny because they type and we chat. We can just
Live
say
chat.
hi.
Right,
No.
it's like a low effort form of replying to someone, isn't it?
Yeah.
Graham says he's done one pressure fermentation already, so what else could he possibly need to know? Confident. I like it.
If it worked, probably nothing, to be fair.
Well, in which case, it's been a waste of 3 hours of your time.
Try on my computer.
Yeah, I'm surprised you stuck it out to the end, Graham, if that's the case.
The only reason Graham stuck it out is because he's not had a beer since December. The longer he stays, the more beer he can drink.
Personally, I wouldn't be watching a brewing podcast if I was trying to stay off the beers, but maybe that's just me.
Yeah. Seriously, do you fancy chucking the link to the guys so they can join us on Zoom?
We
That's
can come
Andy, isn't it?
offline. Well, no, you just need to put the link in the chat.
Put the
and
link
then-
in the
but I would
chat.
rather come off YouTube.
Do it then.
What on?
I'm not going to post it on YouTube, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick it on our little 10-person chat thing.
Yeah.
Harry, if you want to come onto Zoom and chat with us, I'll send you a message on Messenger.
Well, who else is there? There's Hugh Bruce. Paul Neal has just joined us. I'm not sure who that is.
I don't think Paul's going to be in that group, but thank you, Paul, for the feedback.
I'm sorry, but the Hop Edition doesn't have a YouTube channel. That'd be the other three guys because I've got kids and don't have time.
Oh, Harry's in bed, so he's.
You mean
I've gotta
apart
do
from
it.
the
I've got to
YouTube
do
channel?
guys,
that the
hold
Hop
on.
Edition is on
Stop.
now?
Harry, what you wearing?
Have you got your silk panties on?
Hey, Graham's in.
Yo, what's up?
He's all over it. He looks tired though. He doesn't even want to talk to us.
Oh, man, I might have some problems. I can't hear anything. Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, we
I can hear
We
you
can
now.
hear you.
Can you hear us?
Yep.
He's like reluctantly joined the chat.
He felt
Okay, kill
bullied
YouTube,
into
mate.
it.